If someone is to create content and they want to be a YouTuber, they come up to you, regardless of what age they might be. What is the first thing you tell them?
Get a job. Do a creative job. Don't go and do like a mind-numbing IT job.
Do you know any other brands that are doing great work in India on YouTube? What is an ideal team size to have?
Ankur is a great example to take here because it's hundreds of millions of views, 13-member team. That's it.
Something happened through COVID which made everybody addicted to Reels, and I think even Instagram did this in the first month of Reels being active in India. They would send Reels your way because the algorithm would make you watch it. Every time a Reel came, I would block that creator.
Short form content and the fact that you are seeing something on your phone only has happened post-Jio, at least in India. Short form fits the form factor. You don't have to shift your phone, you don't have to like go on a different device. You cannot escape short form now. I wanted short form to eventually die out because I don't like short form. I think it's brain rot. It's just like net negative for society. Even if I don't like it, I can't escape it.
I think TikTok sort of broke the wall. The big thing with TikTok is if you post a video on TikTok, you will go viral. Any random person will get like 100k, a million views.
A maid in the house and she was like, oh, I can't come later today because I have like 200,000 sub followers and I need to go make a video.
You're competing with everyone who has a smartphone at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't need to know short form. You just take the camera and you just start shooting. That's the thing.
Have you ever used Edits? It is an incredible tool.
Why so?
The features compare to my Premiere Pro. And I was just blown away. It has layers. It has green screening.
Very solid teleprompter as well.
So everything that you would possibly need to make videos, it has it there.
The video editing market is a mess.
Because they don't have experience of working in an organization that teaches them those things.
Your professionalism isn't there in the freelance market. You give someone 10 lakhs. You're not happy with the output at that point. What are you going to do?
I have another controversial thesis on this. I don't hire people under the age of 25, especially Gen Zs. One of the things that we were talking about these short form drama things, right? Are we rolling?
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, you can just clap and start it off.
Okay.
Let's go.
So just run through. This doesn't have red lights. Is that on purpose?
It's recorded.
It's on the other side.
I have a habit of like
Technical.
looking at everywhere just to make sure that, yeah. But anyway.
You don't have to produce this, fine.
I was talking to someone about micro dramas, right? And they were talking about how like I was of the belief, or I wanted short form to like sort of eventually die out, right? Because I don't like short form. I think it's brain rot. It's just like a net negative for society. But one trend I've noticed is any format, the minute it transforms into multiple different like into different identities, right? That's when it embeds itself deeper into the ecosystem. For example, you start off with long form videos on YouTube. People are just like making videos. But the minute it transformed into something like a podcast, right? The minute it transformed into something like, hey, I'm not just making like random videos. I'm making like a movie on YouTube. I'm making a short film. So like it's going deeper into the cultural zeitgeist. Similarly, now short form was always for the longest time short form. Oh, I'm just making reels. But now it's come to the point where people are making micro dramas. Right? That might transform into something else. If you notice, that was not the case before. We had Vine. We had, I think, Quibi.
Yeah.
So why did they not last that much, right? They just like, they never penetrated and they never evolved. And I think to a certain extent, they were just like not long enough and not like interesting. So I think my thesis on short form has changed, that even if I don't like it, I can't escape it. And I mean, I seem to be good at it. So you have to do more of it. But yeah, that's sort of, like my Instagram has been just like incredible.
Right.
The causal mechanism there is like you have a platform and then there's this reification into formats, right? Okay, YouTube originally was just you sort of putting your stuff out, right? Essentially using it as an archive.
Yeah.
That was the first video, right? Going to the
I
zoo.
went to the zoo.
Right, I went to the
Yeah.
zoo. And then it becomes a format. Okay, this is a vlog, this
Yeah.
is a cooking video, this is whatever.
Yeah.
And those formats are easily because your brain wants categories. Once you have categories, then I think you're like, okay, this is what I think about YouTube and I think about it in these 5 ways.
Yeah.
And then it sort of becomes part of the zeitgeist.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is, I guess I see the point about micro dramas as well. I think people have attempted different formats. Micro dramas are just much more, much more salient, right? I think it's very easy to consume. I think the ease of consumption is always going to be big. and there's a very strong hook in itself. Ki
Right.
You jump into the middle of a story, you end on a cliffhanger, and you have to watch the next one.
Yeah.
So I think it's fairly easy to follow in
I
that
want
way.
to go deeper into that, but before that, I think for the sake of the audience, I think you guys should officially introduce yourselves. We just rolled in, and this is exactly the way I like it. But I think it just help us if you guys can just tell the world who you are.
Yeah.
In your own words. Who goes first?
I'm Rishwajeet. I've been working in the content space for about 7 years now. I currently run an agency called Machine House Media out of Bangalore. Before this, I was the chief of staff and the content operations manager for Ankur Bariku. I left that job and sort of my Ankur encouraged me to leave the job and start my own business. So I did that and I moved here because I love the city here a lot. And I sort of have been working with creators, founders, brands, doing content, primarily YouTube, also short form with Instagram as well. But that's what I've been about. Always been into content, always into media. Just enjoy that a lot.
Right. Also, how does one encourage someone to leave the job? In my mind, I'm thinking Ankur, like in his motivational self, like, Vishwajit, leave me.
तुम्हारा rate कितना है?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Adil,
We'll talk about that.
I'm Aadil. I'm also a YouTube strategist. I run an agency called Studio 73, and we do YouTube growth for founders and brands. I come from a consulting background, did management consulting after my engineering, and sort of in COVID I pivoted and I was like, hey, what's my ikigai? And it was watching YouTube. So it went from like watching a bunch of YouTube to figuring out how to sort of get into the space, scaled a couple of channels, things like that. Also host a podcast called The Account Playbook. That's how we met.
I've heard of that.
We're writing a book about like successful content playbooks and strategies. So yeah, and just like do a bunch of content stuff all around.
Great. I think it's safe to say YouTube is a very big part of your life and profession. When I was thinking of doing an episode where we could probably just discuss what today's state of YouTube is and how it's changed from the time that I remember consuming it for the first time in 2006-07, where it is a platform where videos could be uploaded and all the videos on it were these grainy 140 to 40p, someone's shot in their house or like home videos and stuff, very, very low quality. And 10 years later, probably in 2016, me using that as a platform to learn about, say, advertising before me wanting to start a business to what it is today in 2026 is very, very different. And I wanted to talk to people who are in the thick of action, who have done it, who are doing it, and who probably have strong views of where it's going, right? So I think microdramas is a great place. I think we can discuss that. I've been hearing this in the mainstream advertising circuits for about the last 18 months. And each time I'm talking to somebody new, there seems to be like a growing conviction that this is the future of advertising. It's a way to sort of enhance your brand without spending a lot of money on doing a big campaign, etc., etc. I have my own theories. I think it's very, very early, so I don't know what to take. And I think everyone's doing it in their own way and calling it microdrama. I also don't think there's a way of doing it. So I want to know, like, when did you guys come across this first? And what do you think microdramas are and where is it going?
I mean, I think it started with Quibi, right? Quibi was an experiment. I think you did research on that quite recently, so you might know who started it. I've forgotten the
Jeffrey
name.
Katzenberg.
That's
It's
right.
a Disney executive.
Yeah,
Right.
and their thesis was that we'll take our films and we'll just cut them up into short bits. They had, I think, a deal with Verizon or something that all their phones will have Quibi pre-installed, so you can watch all of their films essentially, like the Game of Thrones cut into vertical formats, which was very, very strong insight. But the customer relationship and people's experience just wasn't built at that time because you're taking something originally long form.
What year was this?
They started in right before COVID.
Yeah.
Right? I think 2019, if I'm not wrong.
Is it the same time when IGTV was in?
Yeah,
Yes.
the Win pilot, yeah.
So they were quite early with that. The idea was, I think, what it is right now. But the audience expectation and the alignment wasn't there because what it needed was essentially native content to start off because people needed to build that habit of scrolling. Scrolling was quite a new behavior back then for the video format at least. So I think that's where the story starts, doesn't it?
Yeah. Also, I think for Quibi, so the short form content and the fact that you are seeing something on your phone only has happened post Geo, at least in India.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So that means for someone to watch something and use this form factor, that was not there pre like COVID, right? So I think that, along with the fact that you are expecting people to go out of Instagram and YouTube and have another platform where they're sort of doing it doesn't work, right? So I think now the format is a lot more conducive for growth. Like platforms are a lot more conducive for growing micro dramas, is because people are already watching videos on Instagram.
I think TikTok sort of broke the wall, right, on that, because TikTok was highly addictive. It is highly, it's incentivized. Like the big thing with TikTok is if you post a video on TikTok, you will go viral. Like that's the biggest hook.
Yeah.
Any random person will get like 100K, a million views. And that is such a strong incentive to keep creating content, and that's why they have such an incredible library and an algorithm.
Absolutely.
So that they train people to scroll and they train people to watch video vertically. Again, I think Vine was also quite early to that, but these guys sort of, with their incredible algorithm and incredible incentives, they really cracked the format. And once that was done, YouTube Shorts came in, Instagram, IG Reels came in, and once people were accustomed to watching videos vertically, I think micro dramas were the next best thing and the natural conclusion, I'd say, because the format is just perfect. Highly addictive. You sort of start in the action. There's no fluff in there. Just this constant stream of stimulation.
Right.
So I think nothing better than that for the format.
So it is in essence addiction, right? In some ways.
Of course, yeah.
So so what is the turning point? Was it COVID? Because I remember. So I used to do piece to camera videos back in pre-COVID. Okay,
Right.
and I had done a video. I remember saying why IGTV won't survive or why it won't thrive or why it wouldn't make it, because I felt us humans are like trained generationally to consume content horizontally, right?
Yeah.
We work that way, brain works that way. So when something came down vertical and it was 10 minutes, I felt it is very hard to retain attention for 10 minutes in a vertical format. That was my logic to it. And I didn't see it come through. And I remember I got onto TikTok. I only put one video on TikTok. It was me on Level Road the day the lockdown was announced, right, taking a whole video of the circle there because it's all empty, and it was unbelievable that on a weekend it is that deserted. But I got onto TikTok because our office boy used to do a lot of TikTok content. Those musically
that was such a big thing, right?
It was.
Like there were so many friends of mine who had like a maid in the house, and she was like, I can't come later today because I have like 200,000 followers and I need to go make a video.
So our office boy hit 563K on a video, right, on views, and I was like, something's off, like this doesn't make sense. So we got onto TikTok, and I remember back then we were experimenting with content. Vidhu was part of our team back then, and so Vidhu and I were like, let's make TikTok shorts or TikTok reels, whatever we called it. And so we would cut our camera or piece to camera segments into TikTok content, keep it all ready. Fast forward 2 months, TikTok is banned, right? And that happened. But then I thought, okay, this phenomena dies and it doesn't see. But something happened through COVID, which made everybody addicted to reels, and I think even Instagram did this. Where I remember in the first month of Reels being active in India, they would send Reels your way because the algorithm would make you watch it. Every time a Reel came, I would block that creator, right? Because I didn't want to watch Reels. I thought it was just, I knew it was addiction. But I also fell victim to that trap, and now all of us are in it, and we're talking about it going. So what was a trigger point, right? Like I don't know what it is. Something did it. Was it the loneliness and isolation during COVID? Was it something else, or was it just that they just kept sending it our way, that we didn't have a choice and we just got addicted to it?
So IG Reels came as a replacement for TikTok. So IG Reels came to India first before any other country.
Right.
And it was because TikTok had already made a foothold in India and the demand was there. Like as these two examples show, right? It was a very democratizing force in some ways. Now, what you think about that is sort of like secondary. But it was democratizing in sort of the fact that anyone could make content and they could go viral. And this was a format that more people understood. It was more easy to produce. Once those sort of things are met, and you see sort of the number of people that are consuming content in India, I think the business logic makes sense, the media logic makes sense. So the demand was there. I don't think IG Reels changed that. IG Reels was just sort of what it took from somewhat of, I'd say like I don't know if I want to say that, but like a massy phenomenon.
Yeah.
To because that was the connotations back then.
Yeah.
To something, that other people who sort of have like a quote unquote, a pretentious taste in content, as people like to call it at least. I don't know if that is true, especially not true anymore. I think that it sort of crossed that boundary at that point. And because people didn't have things to do because it was COVID. Right? So that sort of time was there, the content barrage was there. I think it was sort of natural at that point. Because we had seen similar successes with Vine, at least limited, the business logic didn't make sense. And maybe we can talk about how logic here changed and why short form videos started. And now the encouragement across all these platforms, across TikTok, across Instagram, is to make longer videos. Even vertically, they want you to make 2-3 minute videos.
Right.
But at that point, like, that was the only way I think it would have played out. It just needed some time and some sort of people getting accustomed to it.
Right. You think the same?
I feel like a huge part of it also was the fact that this was like video is the native tongue of the internet, right? And short form is like it fits the form factor. You don't have to shift your phone. You don't have to like go on a different device. And that along with the fact that you can find all types of content on short form now, right? I think the one thing that Vine didn't get right was it just had this sort of connotation of comedy, right? I don't know why that was. Maybe the initial sort of their GTM plan or the creators that were coming on were only comedy creators, right? Or like entertainment creators. And although entertainment and comedy is something that is mostly relatable, you still need more content, right? For people to watch. You can't always be consuming that. Yeah. Let's say now for Instagram, you have all types of varieties, right? You have educational, you have informational, you have everything. Yeah. So I think now you have something for everyone. Plus the fact that you have it in a form factor that you don't have to do anything. Now we are like complete cyborgs, right? We are truly one with our phones. I would say like now you cannot escape short form now. Like you have to be on short form. And another interesting thing that I was talking about was that there's this idea of like a K-shaped economy, right? Where instead of like everyone facing the economy together in like the similar trends, the people who are wealthy keep getting wealthier. The people who are like not just keep sort of getting worse, right? And I think that's also happening with content. Because in a lot of ways, long form is going deeper into long form in the sense that now you need to make content that is meant for like a bigger screen.
Yeah.
That means it has to be highly produced. That means it needs more pre-production, more research, more investment. Not everyone can do it. So someone who's already cracked long form can actually go deeper and like get even more reach, get even more impact. So naturally, whoever
when you
can't
speak
do
long
that,
form, sorry to cut you off, but when you say long form, what's the duration you're talking about on this?
I'm actually like 15 minutes. I would call a short form at this point.
Short or long? Short
like
form.
15 is short.
Okay.
Right.
So long.
Even if we're talking about like horizontal videos. 15 is still like now I think the lower end of videos that I work on are like 15 minutes, right? Like we want it to be longer, like 20, 25, 30, 40 minutes. So I think when you are going on the bigger screen, you want it to be longer, right? Because the minute, slight digression, but there's this guy called Mario Juice, okay? He was the retention director for Mr. Beast. He shares incredible insights about YouTube on his LinkedIn. So someone can just like go and see his visuals on LinkedIn. Amazing visuals.
Really well done.
He talks about, he has like a heat map of what the perception of length, so like time perception across a video looks like for someone. So the time perception is extremely fast in like the first 30 seconds, right? It feels like everything is too slow, right? So that's why it feels like it's too slow, people are going to scroll away. But the minute they enter, let's say the 5-minute mark, that like time just slows down, right? So they're like, hey, this is cool, I'm just going to stick with it. So you need to the longer you get them in the video, the longer they'll stay in the video, right? So now if, let's say you're getting someone to 10 minutes, the likelihood of them staying to like 30 minutes, 40 minutes is so much higher, right? But on the other side, come back to the K-shaped concept. So now if you can't get into long form, let's say you're a brand creator, whatever, you don't know how to get into long form, you'll go short form. But now the competition in short form is so high that now you are competing with everyone who does know short form. So you have to go deeper there.
You're competing with everyone who has a smartphone at this point.
Yes.
You don't need to know short form. You just take the camera and you just start shooting. That's the thing.
And actually that's another reason why short form is so embedded, because Instagram, have you ever used edits?
Instagram?
You should use edits like it is an incredible tool.
Why so? Like just
it is the features compared to my Premiere Pro.
On Instagram?
So like a Final Cut. Yes. You can do anything you want on edits. Like I discounted the app. I was like, hey, I use VN Editor, whatever. The minute you start using it, it's a little buggy. But the amount of features and the things that I can do on my phone, it is phenomenal. I can't even imagine what CapCut can do.
Yeah, we don't have access to that here in
because
India.
we don't have it's just incredible. And I was just blown away. It has layers. It has green screening. It has it's extremely accurate.
Very solid teleprompter as well.
Yeah, it has like incredible features. So everything that you would possibly need to make videos, it has it there. All you need to do is open it and like just like move around a little bit. That's it.
They have like an inspiration tab. You can see what's working, what's not working for other people. You save it to your collection, and then you can take the script. You can do whatever.
So it seems like there's a push to people to become creators, and I think the system is helping them, right?
Yes.
Because more content means more people on the platform. That means more retention. That means more prospect of ads.
Correct.
And more revenue.
Yeah.
Right. So where does microdrama fit in this? Coming back to that.
I think
my theory is short form is easy to do, so everyone started doing it.
Yeah.
correct.
But then it's also brain rot, right?
Correct.
In the sense that it's hard to make great content in less time. That's even in advertising. So in 2017, I think Facebook had introduced something called thumb stoppers, which is basically trying to say, basically they wanted to sell the 15-seconder as an ad slot, because in advertising, mainstream advertising, that was never considered a possibility. There was films, of course, TV ads would do for 10, etc. But they wanted to see if Facebook could also replicate it. So they tied up with like some of the best directors in the country. One of them was Prakash Verma, Nirvana Films, etc. The ones who did Zuzus, right? The Vodafone, great, them. And he's also an actor now. So they, I think, had got him to do some of the ads along with a lot of others. One of my friends also back then was working in Leo Burnett, and they worked on this. So they were talking about how his experience was, he said the internal consensus was this was supposed to be a 3-frame storytelling. You had to convey everything in 3 shots. So they picked the best directors because the craft required to do that at that scale comes with years of experience. So which means it is, and I think the consensus, if you speak to a lot of the directors, is it's harder to make an ad in less time than to in a 15-seconder than to make it in a minute.
100%.
Yeah.
So I feel the shift that we see with microdramas in some ways that people who have ability to tell good stories in about 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 60 seconds are pushing the envelope, but they're bringing element of craft in. That's my theory.
Yeah.
For differentiation.
I think that's very solid. I think, again, I keep telling you, I guess, here, because I went to Mumbai recently, right? I haven't been to Mumbai. I haven't worked in that sort of Bollywood adjacent production space. But I've only done it here, and I've done it with Ankur, I've done it with people, but again, remotely. I went to Mumbai. The process of production there is so solid, so solid. People are just masters at their craft. Compare that sort of system to anything here is, I think, like night and day.
Of course.
So what surprises me most always is that there's so many people in that sort of legacy industry who have so much skill at storytelling, at production, across the full production pipeline, I'd say. And if they sort of shift their attention to sort of this digital media, to this new economy, they'll be above everyone. And I think that sort of shows here as well with microdramas, because these are incredible productions, right? Compared to anything that one person might do at their home, in their living room. Just compare that scale to something that's happening in microdrama. Again, it's also very cheap to produce from their end because their scales are like massive right now in the traditional industry. I do think that sort of hypothesis has like very strong legs in that sense.
Right. I think that'll happen. That the two worlds are meeting. I think we're seeing a lot of that. I remember, so I think one of our producers who works with us today here used to do all of the shoots for Jord Indian.
Right.
And I think they have a slightly evolved process to it because they work with people who have shot ad films, who have been in the field of direction cinematography for about a decade. In fact, the person who used to shoot all of their, who used to direct all of their films was Sahit, who's been on the show before. And he's been at it for about 10, 12 years. And he's in fact done a few Kannada films too. So that world is coming together. And I think as creators are going in and becoming part of web series, and I think this is happening in the Bombay circles a lot faster because I think that's the holy pilgrimage site of content, right, in India in a lot of ways. You see, I have this theory. I tell all of the people in advertising that if you want the best of the best creatives, right, true-blooded creatives, you go to Bombay. If you want the best of the best tech talent, it's here in Bangalore. And if you want the best of the best PR lobbying, that kind of talent, you go to Delhi. These are the three, how the three cities are divided. So in Bangalore, yes, you're right. In fact, a lot of people, I think the guy who runs Monk Entertainment, he had a great quote, right? He said, finding a great creative producer in Bangalore is almost impossible. Much like finding a great CTO in Bombay. So it's a bit like that, I guess. I think each city has its DNA and it comes from its thing. But I think that's changing. That's changing a lot.
Yeah, well, but like Bangalore and sort of this tech circle, this online circle, right? This had in some ways a monopoly on what online culture looked like. I think that's changing, especially as sort of the business models of the old world are sort of going away, right? The incentives are for them to come in and sort of be part of the digital world more. Again, there was an old thing that all influencers want to become movie stars, and I think that's still there.
Yeah.
But the other way around is, I think, more interesting here of
Yeah.
people in traditional industries coming to this and being like,
Yeah.
oh, online creators.
Yeah.
But the
No-
status that is connected to being a movie star,
Yeah.
at least I don't see that changing in the next 10, 20 years or so.
Right.
Because the cultural embedding of being a movie star and, being like a red
True.
carpet person,
Yeah.
that until the millennials and Gen Z actually grow up and they are the ones dictating culture, that is not going to change.
Fair. I also think they are trading off both of the professions and for its merits. Like, for example, I remember reading about this back 10 years ago or so, that Will Smith had started a YouTube channel and he was doing all those adventures because apparently he was commanding a fee that he wasn't able to justify in Hollywood, and he wasn't getting movies.
Right.
And the only way to come back into relevance was to actually be visible and out there more often, which then would bring him back, right? On the other hand, you see a Robert Downey Jr., I think he's now one of the highest paid. He's happy getting few gigs, but doing things he likes.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who wants to be there out, but then also wants the rate that you're charging, then that becomes hard. I also think I think Ravi Ashwin is a great example, right? Of who's embraced YouTube.
He has a podcast now, right?
He has bunch of things. He does he has different segments of different creators. He has one in vernacular in Tamil. He has one in Hindi, which his Hindi isn't the greatest, but he tries. And then he has an English one. So he does special like shows and segments each time there's a World Cup or IPL. He does his own mock IPL, like it's crazy. But I think he realized a long time ago that he needs to think about his life after his career.
Right.
So athletes are doing that, and I think this is a very Western concept in the US, for example.
correct.
A lot of them sort of do it.
Yes.
Not so much in European athletes.
Yeah.
A lot of European athletes, I see them coming on LinkedIn, starting pages after they retire because they want to become corporate speakers, right? And then they want to do gigs and training and all that. It's that direction. I don't think Ashwin is looking like that. And I don't think a lot of the NBA, NFL stars in the US also think like that.
Yeah.
They want to be relevant from a cultural standpoint. So back, I think in the 90s, you had a Dennis Rodman, or you had like your Michael Jordan and a few others who would transcend and be relevant all through his time. Like in India, probably Sachin was, but not too many had opportunities. And I feel they're thinking like this as well, of trying to create and figure out content. So they're trading off, and I think and I think at the end of the day, it's a function of network and influence.
Yeah.
I think that's what either you make it as a creator, or you bring that into the world of creation. I guess there's only two ways.
Yeah.
I'm sure growing up, you didn't want to be in this field, right?
Before, I would say 2019, which is
When you did college?
2021, which
When
is
did you
called
graduate college?
2019.
Okay.
So before 2021, which is when I started thinking about doing this, I hated taking pictures. I try going back to I don't have pictures, so I hated being on camera.
Same.
So to answer your question, no, I had no idea that I would be.
What about you?
I wanted to be a scientist. I wanted to be an engineer.
Nice.
I was like a JEE kid.
Right. Oh,
I have a long and sort of
nerd.
weird journey to getting where I am right now.
Right.
I was preparing for JEE and I was like very, very bored. I was extremely bored. I was so disillusioned with everything. I was like, what the fuck am I reading? Do I care about this mathematical sum? Why am I doing trigonometry? And I just didn't care about it. And I sort of really got into Stoic philosophy back then. And like this was a whole new world, right? I was like a middle class kid in Indore. There were like very, very set defined paths that I knew that existed in the world. Philosophy wasn't a domain I was ever really a part of. I was like, okay, this is like changing everything for me. So I got into philosophy, I got into politics, just reading like academia. And that's when I thought, okay, I'm going to leave this JEE thing behind. And this was like in the middle of exams also, by the way. So I was preparing and I was sort of not really giving it my all. And I was like, I'm just going to spend time reading this. So I did all of that. I got terrible grades in my 12th because, of course, I wasn't prepping for it. And then I applied to Ashoka, which is like a liberal arts university in Haryana that people might know. Hopefully, I think the name is much bigger now, but back then it wasn't as big. I was like, I need something multidisciplinary that sort of gets me into politics, that gets me into philosophy. I was like, I'm going to study politics, I'm going to study philosophy, I'm going to figure out what the world is like, because I don't even know what exists out there. And these were like two new domains for me. And when I started getting into it, I was like, everything here is so textbook all that people do all day is just either do quantitative, just run
Right.
numbers on elections, or they think in very, very abstract ways. So I want to get into media so that I can actually talk about this and actually connect with people out in the world. So that's when I started doing media studies there as well. When I started doing that, I was listening to a couple podcasts and I was like, okay, I've learned this stuff in my sort of classes. Let me just reach out to them. So I just cold emailed them. And I'm like, I'm a listener of your podcast. I love this. I'd love to sort of work with you. And they were like, yeah, sure. So I just started audio editing for them. I hadn't ever done it professionally, of course, but I was like, okay, this is great money and I'm learning on the job. So I started doing that. Then I started producing a couple podcasts. And then I think that was sort of the journey that got me into the
Right.
content world.
Yeah,
Right.
that's very organic. That was
Yeah.
not me at all.
Yeah,
It was-
similar story for me.
Yeah, for me it was. I remember reading Naval's Twitter storm for the first time. Like I knew about Twitter. I never went on Twitter. I remember in like 2021, 2022. I was watching. I really got into Tim Ferriss. Like really got into Tim Ferriss, and I watched like a shit ton of his podcasts. And then I saw the Naval episode, and I was like, what is this? Why have no one? Why has no one told me about this before? I read his Twitter storm, changed my life. I printed it out as a poster at home with like all of his tweets, like fully laminated. And that's when I was like, oh, that. Then I went to Ikigai. Must know Chris Do.
Yeah.
He has this brilliant video on Ikigai.
Yeah.
And then I understood the concept of, hey, what the world wants, what the world needs, what you're good at, what you can be paid for. So then I did like a very logical thing, right? Okay, what are the things that I like doing? And I had 4 options. There was working out, cooking, basketball, watching YouTube. And I was like, I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I don't really want to be a chef. I can't be a basketball player. So I have to do something with YouTube. And that's how it started. And then that was the time when Colin and Sameer were sort of on the up. There was still, I remember they made one video with or about Casey Neistat. So this was like way before creator economy was a thing. So I was like, hey, what's the best thing that I can do? So I started writing on LinkedIn. I started making short form videos. So those shorts blew up, and that's how I sort of entered the space. So for me, it has always been that, hey, can I just like stack up proof of work? And the more I do that, like I am my own little guinea pig. So if I can do it for myself, I can do it for other people. And that's how I sort of got into it.
Similar. I think I had no plans to be in this field at all in any way, shape, or form. But I guess podcast was a way for me to consume, and then I wanted to do so
Yeah.
as well. So the reason I asked you is because, and you can choose to answer or not, but my first earning out of selling whatever I knew from an internet marketing perspective, and my earning for the first month, I was very young. There was no market for it. 2015, I think, and then I made 8K. That was my first paycheck. And I've actually, that proposal has been laminated and put above my table where I sit as a reminder to the organization of types. What were yours?
Yeah, I can tell the story. So I remember I just came across this workshop that was happening. I think it's like an Instagram ad or something. And the workshop was about podcasting, right? Like, it was something around podcasting. And I already had a podcast at that point. So I was like, hey, let me just go. And I remember I was walking my dog. And I got like half an hour late, right? There were only 20 people in the workshop. I went in. And I was the one that was like asking all the questions, talking to the guest, talking to the host. Like I was the one who was like there. And then after that, I was like, hey, the host seems really cool. Can you come on my podcast? So I just like pinged him later and I was like, hey, I'd love to. He just was like, hey, you're doing video producing. It seems cool. Do you want to do it for me? Right? And I just left my job like a couple months earlier, my consulting job. And he's like, hey, I can give you like 40,000 a month. And we can do like a couple of videos. I was like, I can get paid for this? I had, okay, yeah, sure. Let's do it. So that was my first foray. And that person is Dharmesh Ba. I don't know if you know.
Yeah,
Now he runs India Notes and his consulting thing. The guest was the founder whose company and I worked in 2 years down the line as like head of content. So that's how I sort of started.
Right.
Yeah, mine was just the podcast. So I reached out to this podcast. It was very, very niche. It was, a thing on like politics and philosophy. And they had about like 1,000 listeners an episode. And I think I was one of the few people who had reached out to him to just discuss. And I just had some thoughts on the podcast and some topics he had discussed in an episode. And I was like, I just want to talk to you about this. So we got to talking and we were like, okay, we're very, very aligned. And at this point, he was making about like $300-400 a month off of the podcast. just through some ads, some I think revenue in other ways on through platforms. And he was like, I need someone to help me with this, and I'll give you everything I make. And I'm like, that's crazy. I was a college student, and making $300 a month was not even a month. I think about a month. $300 a month at that point. That was just unimaginable to me because again, I was not earning, and I hadn't earned a single rupee before that. So I was just helping him produce. I was helping him edit. Of course, I hadn't done any of these things professionally before.
Right.
The only thing I had going into it was कि I have conviction. I know that this is like a very solid niche, and people have a very strong relationship with the guest, and I have personal relationship and personal opinions on where this podcast is going, what the topics are, all of that. So we started doing that, and I think we slowly grew it to like $1,000, and at that point we were splitting it 50-50 or so, and we did that for a few years, and from there I got another sort of show, and that sort of snowballed into getting the professional life going.
Right. Great. So just look at it this way right now. I think a lot of kids today are growing up saying, I want to be a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Right. Because they see their favorite stars, and like I remember I was a kid, I would come back home from school and I would watch Cartoon Network because that was just the way of life.
Yeah.
That's changing, where people, I think kids today are having iPads at home, or even the TV. Most of the houses don't have cable.
Yeah.
So then they tend to basically subscribe to YouTube or YouTube Kids, whatever it might be. But invariably they end up, by the time they're teenagers, finding their favorite creators. They sometimes are the teenagers, etc. And then they're consuming that content. And a lot of them grow up saying, I also want to be like that. Right? And fame is addictive. Status is addictive. So everyone wants that life. If someone is to create content and say they want to be a YouTuber, they come up to you, regardless of what age they might be. What is the first thing you tell them?
Get a job.
Oh, great.
No, I wouldn't say that. I would say go make content.
Yeah, I'd say get a job. So, see, my thesis on this is a little unpopular. I'd say that, making content is very easy, right? You have a phone, you have a camera, you have access to YouTube. You're one ChatGPT query away from knowing how to write a script, how to make a video. But the thing is, if you have conviction and you have intention, you'll go and make content, which is fine. But the thing is, you also have to understand the business side of it if you want to do it long term, right? So you make content on the side, that's fine. But I think, and this was one of the pointers that I had shared earlier also, there is no better time to be a creative employee than now, right? Because as we talk about it, there is a massive, massive shortage of good creative employees. And I think the skill set that you stack by just going on camera and consistently make like 100 videos, it sets you apart multiple standard deviations away from everyone else in the market. Right. So, and that gives you so much more access and exposure to how the world works, how like this industry works. Because the way that you think about it is that, hey, like I'm making videos and everyone will just say that, hey, I want to get brand deals. Right. And that's my way of making money.
Yeah.
But we all know that faucet runs dry very quick. Right. So what do you do next? So I think it's a much more sustainable way for you to not rely on only brand deals, and you have to think a little farther than just that, hey, I'm making videos, because I think that's the easiest part, right? Learning a couple of tutorials on how to write hooks and how to like take multiple camera angles and like just make 100 videos. I have a very close friend who was like, hey, I want to give this a try, right? I was like, make 50 videos. Before that, you don't come to me. Don't come to me with, should I do this? Is it worth it? Is it not? Should I change my strategy? No, just make 50 videos. He's on video 19. Every video of his is now hitting 10K on like a 200 follower account, right? So I think especially on Instagram, you just make 100 videos and you'll understand the content part of it. And that's the easiest thing to do. Just be consistent, right?
I agree with every single detail that you've mentioned. I'll just change the top line. I think doing those 100 videos will teach you so much more.
No, it won't teach you about the business.
It
just will not teach you about the business.
I think you learn so much. Like you learn how actually like audience psychology works. You learn how to actually craft your sort of speech. You learn how to research things.
See, these are all the creation side of things.
Yes.
Right? But the creation side does not sustain the monetization.
No, but that doesn't matter, right? What I'm saying is that you shouldn't get a job to start off. You do this and you'll learn so much more, and you'll have such a nice proof of work, and you'll be such a better employee going into it. So you start off by creating.
I would say do it together.
I mean, of course.
Nothing
better than that.
Yeah, do it together.
But I don't think the 100 videos is easy, right? It's straightforward, but it's not easy. I think you can figure out how to do it. The components are in front of you. Like
of course.
It's not easy. It's straightforward.
Of course.
Yeah.
But then this flip sides to both, right? For example, like you said, getting a job means that it takes away from your time at hand to make great videos. Let's put it that way, because you have that commitment to look at. Also, it depends on what your job entails. Like if you are exposed to the commercial side while on the job, there's
So I'll be more nuanced. You can't get any job.
All right.
Like don't go and do a corporate job. Do a creative job. Right? Yeah. To be more specific, do a creative job. Right? Like don't go and do like a mind-numbing IT job. Do a creative job. So you have to be in the same industry.
Right.
But do the job while you're doing the content, because the content is going to like burn you out very quickly.
Right.
And it's not a sustainable way to live. Right. And I think it's a great sort of expanding your surface area of luck activity. And if you have it in you to be a creator long term, sure, not a lot of people don't. But I think understanding the business side also is going to give you so much more leverage to like do this long term and be in this industry long term.
Right. Fair. Agreed. I think it's a way of doing it, and I'm in line. On this side also, right? Like for example, not everybody would have the financial freedom to not take up a job or an opportunity to make a living, and then probably when you're a student, right? So is it better to then start early?
Yeah, I think like as early as you can, honestly.
So what's the right age? Is there a right age?
No, I think
as soon as you get access to a phone.
Is the right age your parents making content using you? And then you get to a certain, like you get to like from age of 6 to 12, your folks are doing it for you. Then the age of 13, you get creative control, right? Or not.
I mean, I'm far away from being a parent, so I don't know what the relationship on consent and things that look like. But I'd say if you're a kid, right, as soon as you're allowed on those platforms, you can start, because it's a fun thing to do, right? And you learn along the way. It's not like I don't really overrate the dangers of being online as much these days. I think if you can build a healthy relationship with the internet. It's very, very tough, and hopefully your parents are there to support you in that journey. But I think like it's a hobby like any other, and you'll learn a lot more. And there are a lot of people that say, "Oh, don't waste your time online. You only have this childhood." I think that's sort of the countercultural movement right now. Try to keep the kids outside of the internet, have them have an IRL life.
Yeah, I don't think that works, because I mean, for us, I don't know about you guys, but when I was younger, my standard thing was I come back from school, and at let's say like the minute the sun goes down and like there's no heat, like you go out and play. Right? That's what you do. You go play cricket or football or some coaching class or whatever, right? I think the equivalent of that has now been, hey, we go out and make content. Right? Or hey, we go out and do something online, right? You see, I see so many people, especially in Indiranagar, Bangalore area, that like, oh, they'll just like in public, they'll put a phone, start dancing. That is so foreign to me. At the same time, I do recognize that maybe that is the norm now. And I think culturally and like from a like the people around you standpoint, you would be the one missing out if you were not doing it. Right? So I think you shouldn't fight against the tide. So if you have a phone, if you have a lot of people around you who are making some sort of, and of course there's this distinction, right? Like making like YouTube videos or some reviews or a podcast and things like that. I think that's fair game. And I feel like that will teach you a lot very quickly. But again, you have to like know how to think of it long term. Right. But it definitely gives you like a lot of skill sets for sure.
Right. Interesting. How does one figure out what type of content to create?
Just make 100 videos.
I think it often starts from consumption, right? You know what you like to watch, and you'll probably create something around that. When I started, like my first YouTube channel was political. I was talking about current affairs in India and abroad. So at that time, there was a coup happening in Belarus. So I contacted like a protester in Belarus, and I had him on to interview, because I think I'm forgetting the name of the president at this point. Lukashenko, I think, was the guy who was there at that point. So there was like big repression happening, a lot of blackouts, sort of things, like an Iron Curtain of sorts. Like Russia was invading, all of that was happening. And I just contacted that guy there. I was like, come on the show and tell me your story. I contacted the health minister of Kerala to come in and talk to me about what was happening with COVID back then. Because it was starting out and Kerala was sort of doing its own thing. Yeah. And people were like, oh, what's happening in Kerala?
I forgot her name. She's a teacher, right? She's a retired teacher turned politician.
I think at that point there was someone else. It was an older guy. I forgot his name as well.
Somebody else.
I sort of left the political life behind in many ways at this point. But that's what I started, because that's what I was consuming at that point.
Right.
There was a big wave of sort of countercultural, I think I'd say liberalist content in the West at that point, as a sort of response to, there's a big story here. I don't know if people know of Gamergate here. I think that sort of every political thing that you see today from Trump to Russia to China, everything is in some ways downstream of Gamergate, and maybe we'll get to that at some point, and maybe people can look it up themselves. But it started from ethics in game journalism to sort of like the reactionary movement, the rise of Trump, all of that. So the thing is, there was a period in the US where a lot of people opposing sort of reactionary content came up, and I sort of grew up watching that in some ways. I was like, okay, I have this sort of opinions, I have these sort of ideas about the world, I'm going to make content on that. I think that's often how it starts. You're like, okay, I'm consuming X kind of content, and I'll sort of create content that emulates that or helps me participate in the discourse in some ways.
So it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
It's
opinion and access.
Yeah.
Right. So its opinion is what do you have an opinion on, which is generally based on preference, and access is what's the information that you have access to. Right. Like anyone can have I can have opinions on politics, but I don't like politics.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't have access to that information. And so, for example, similar to him, my first YouTube channel, my first 7 videos to be exact, were about my consulting job. Right? Because I had opinions, I had access to the company, I had access to information on how it worked. And I was like, hey, there's a clear vacuum here. Like 100,000 people a year are applying to this company. Why is no one talking about that, hey, these are the 7 progressions and this is how you go from one to the next, right? Or this is how much hike you can expect from one to the next, right? So what do you have an opinion on, which is high quality? Do you have access to information around it that is high quality, or around whatever? This is more like, I would say, educational content or informational content. I mean, we can sort of extrapolate this for like entertainment things and things like that, but that's what I would say. Like, have an opinion, have access.
Yeah. Is that the most popular framework? Something that exists in the market, or something that
This is something that I have been working on for a while. I think it is opinion, access, quality, whole race to charisma. So quality can be production quality or information quality. Access, let's say like a billionaire who is like Nikhil Kamath, he has access to all these CEOs, right? Or Varun Mai, he has access to these CEOs. And opinion that like you need to have some flavor, right? You need to have a personality. You need to like have some point of view. Which may or may not be controversial, but like you need to believe in some values. And then charisma is the biggest thing, because you can have all of this, like you can have a personality, you can have information that is like useless, but you can be extremely charismatic and it'll still work, right? We keep on talking about like the project that we collaborate on, that we can have the worst of scripts. If the presenter is good, the video is going to work.
And we've had the converse happen as well. We wrote the best of scripts, the best of strategy, and the channel didn't work because
worst of
we just didn't control the level of
works.
presentation.
Right.
And that we tried so hard to make that happen.
Yeah. And that's why that's the exponent.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's common across all, even films, right? Like if you have a bad actor delivering great lines, it just won't work.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Another thing you really spoke of, which I want to touch upon, is charisma. Not enough people actually think about that, because another word for that, a mellowed down version, is probably personality.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I would tell brands who wanted to invest in all of these, podcasts or content IPs, I would say you need a great presenter, because on the internet you're attracting talent on the attracting viewers on the back of some level of personality that you build, right? Because personal brands comes from personality. And I think they're the ones who are most conducive to grow on the internet. So if as a brand you're replicating it, then you need to have something too. And you need to find a match there. Like you need to find a presenter who sort of has the same kind of values, energy, personality, etc. I remember in the early days, I'm saying 2014, I think when Taco Bell had rewritten their entire social media marketing approach, and they said, we are going to make every content feel like it is shot through a first person point of view, right? Which means what you're likely to see is what you will closest to feel like experiencing if one of you were out here and about with a phone, right? So all the group pictures would come from a POV shot, for example, and then the products would just come into it. So they had rewritten a rule book of how they want to be presented, and they were, I think, one of the first active brands on social media who were like, if you DM them a taco, they would, like a taco emoji, they would give you a coupon code. Okay, right? They did things like that, which is quite cool. So I remember they had this, they had a 2-member Snapchat team, right? And there were 2 people who were Snapchat presenters, because I think they wanted to connect to Gen Z, and they would bring the same vibe that Taco Bell's brand was defined by. So that was very, very evolved thinking. I remember like taking that to brands in India, and I'm seeing there isn't that same level of understanding, because America is a very different market. It's very evolved. From a marketing standpoint, we think it's the pinnacle, right? Like whatever happens there first, it happens, it becomes a playbook, and then it comes to the rest of the world. Rarely do innovations of that nature happen anywhere else in the world from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
What have been your experiences dealing with brands? Do they understand YouTube the way YouTubers understand YouTube?
Yeah.
And if not, then what are they looking for?
Yeah, I think something very similar, right? We talk to individually and collectively a lot of brands, and they don't understand YouTube. That's number one, and that's primarily because the stakeholders who are controlling the budget are not consumers of the platform that they want to be on, right? So if you have someone who is, let's say, in their mid-40s or 50s, he doesn't watch YouTube, right? And plus, if you want to target a different audience, that's also a huge thing, by the way. That a slight digression, but I feel like everyone is a YouTube strategist today. Everyone wants a YouTube strategist today. What people don't understand is nuance, and your past experience plays a huge role in your ability to, let's say, grow a channel, right? So, for example, if you are targeting a channel that is like women in their mid 50s in like tier 2, tier 3 India, right, where they speak Hindi, and you are a strategist, this is my experience by the way, and you are a strategist that is English first, like tech side content, Gen Z, tier 1, there's a clear mismatch. So I can have the best of experiences, but the likelihood of me scaling that will be less because I don't have the cultural know-how. Of course, you can learn on it and all of that, but alignment is a little less, right? So I think brands don't understand that, and they don't understand, even coming back to the whole personality thing, we aren't taught about personality, right? Like, why are we not talking about, hey, how to be charismatic, how to be funny? We all know that someone who is funny, someone who is confident is like, that's a 10x lever right there. No one really talks about it. Like, why are we not spending 30 minutes a day being like, hey, can I be a little more funnier, right? Can I be a little more like charming, right? Everyone knows that that's a great thing. No one really learns about it. And same thing on the brand side. Everyone is worried about, hey, either I don't have a presenter, so where do I find one? If I find one, that person is going to have more association with the audience than I do, than my brand does.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that we are seeing, especially recently, right?
Yeah.
People think that the presenter that they get will just own the channel.
Yeah.
Right? They feel, okay, if we have like a nice person come in, they'll build the relationship with the audience and they'll go away, take the audience with them.
Which is a valid concern, but what they assume.
But I think it's an invalid concern. I'll tell you why. Look at the Tonight Show.
Yeah.
In the US,
I'll
right?
finish the thought. So that's a valid concern. It makes sense, right? It's a rational thought that, hey, he will get all the audience, he or she will get the audience. But you are assuming that the brand will not grow at the same time as the presenter, right? Zomato is the perfect example I keep coming back to, right? Saiba Bali grew Zomato's YouTube. She was the face, right? But Zomato as a brand also grew apart from YouTube, right? So, and because that happened, Saiba Bali, even her leaving, it did not matter if she left or not. Right? So Zomato kept on growing. They can bring in more people, right? And you have countless such examples, right? And there are multiple ways of sort of figuring out the key man risk. You don't do one presenter, you do two presenters. That's the classic FM model. So I think brands need to understand that it's not that you are sort of offloading the responsibility of growing the YouTube to someone. You also have to grow, right? You can't just be like, hey, you grow my YouTube and then my business is entirely dependent on you. That won't work.
Yeah.
You have to grow the institution of the brand, right? It needs to be a fun, creative place that people associate. Like, it should not just be, oh, I'm like a silent brand that doesn't show up in the content at all, and people think, oh, it's just one person's channel or one person's outlet. It should be like an integrated strategy that sort of brings the brand forward.
And with brands there's a layer of disingenuous, right? Their outlook to it is not coming from a place that I want to grow YouTube for the right reasons.
Yeah.
It's more of saying we need to grow YouTube because I have to hit certain metrics that has been placed on me by the CMO, the marketing manager.
Yeah.
As a result, I'm going to look at short-term ways of getting it so that whenever the assessment period comes around, I've scored well.
Yes.
There's a big problem with this. So we've worked with a bunch of people, brands and sort of even creators who have some small businesses, and they just boost videos. When the organic content strategy doesn't work, they'll just put money into it and they'll rule the channel. Like, it's all, the algorithm will just think this is a money pumping channel, and you'll hit a plateau and you won't be able to go above it as much as you try. I think it's very rare that you sort of manage to sort of go past the plateau, but a lot of channels have been ruined just by putting money into them.
I have a very unpopular or / controversial opinion on how to solve for this. Agencies should provide guarantees. Right? And that will only happen when agencies are good enough and niche enough to be able to say that, hey, we are fucking cracked at what we do and we'll be able to give you a guarantee that this will happen. If not, then like you provide some sort of a buffer, and that's the offer, right? That's the classic Alex Hormozi offer creation. But I think agencies should start providing guarantees. Like, I've been running a new, or I used to at least a couple of months ago, is that I'll scale your Instagram to 10,000 followers in 10 videos. I've done that like 4 or 5 times now. right? And I think that's very, very realistic. If you just understand, and you have to be very niche about it, right? That only one sort of type of videos, one format, one way, and then you just in a way templatize it, where you change the content at the back end, but you really have understood the execution. But that guarantee is going to increase the trust in the market that, hey, we need to do this because there is immediate ROI, right? And on the organic front, agencies understanding how to do this properly will sort of, that just like enables the entire ecosystem.
The thing is, the problem comes upstream for the brands, right? They first attempt to do it on their own. They'll start with a purely organic strategy.
It won't work.
They'll do it. It doesn't work. They're like, okay, I still have the targets by the CMO. So then they'll put money into it just to boost it. Once that doesn't work, and they're like, okay, we still don't have an audience, right? We have a 35K video and like nothing's happening on it.
Right.
Like no real interaction, nothing happening. And then they come to an agency.
Yeah.
Then the problem is with the agency. The agency is like, okay, I can do an organic strategy for you, but like your channel is like bullshit right now. It's nothing.
Right.
You don't have an audience.
So this is interesting because I'll tell you the media buying on Instagram, Meta and Google at least, is a very lucrative large business by itself, right? For a lot of big agencies, and they thrive on that. It's a big part of our revenues as well, because the thinking on the brand side is that if I make a piece of content and add whatever it is, if I go to traditional mediums, I have to buy billboard space, I have to buy newspaper space, radio, etc., etc. Now I come on YouTube or I come on Facebook or wherever else it is, and there's a limited number of people I get. But I'm using the same philosophy of offline, which is let me put money and get more people.
Yeah.
Now what happens also is that now it's become a part of the business model, which means every year, let's say hypothetically, they have 1 crore parked aside for promoting content, right? Hypothetical figure, depending on organization to organization. There's some who spend 1,000 crores a year, right? On spending on Facebook and Google, etc. Now it's part of the business model, which means it's always going to be the case. There was a client that I used to work with. We used to spend so much for them on Facebook. We used to do calls with Facebook where the exec would come and say, hey guys, you're not even at 1 ROAS, and it's a big problem. You're almost breaking our algorithm. Like it will not give you returns beyond a point. And the brand's objective was, doesn't matter. Even if we pick up 50 subscribers a week, we're happy. Let's just keep at it. Growth at all costs. They were blitzscaling. That was the model. So what happens when these two worlds meet is that only one's going to survive, right? You either need to find a brand with professionals on the other side who respect the organic way of growing a channel, which is very rare because they're not in that business. They're in the business of selling coffee or soap or edtech product or whatever else it is. These are just ways to get there. And on the other hand, you have these pure play creators who come in and, like, for example, like yourselves, and you will need to take a call whether you bend to those wishes and mold your business model to achieve, right? And I'm assuming this is probably something that you guys come across a lot, right? I've actually given up. Now I go for a meeting and say, what do you... So my theory now, at least working with brands, is that you will only be able to do the kind of work for a brand based on the taste and preferences of the people managing the brand.
Correct.
So if they look at it a certain way, you don't have a choice. You will have to deliver to that if you want to keep the business. And I think that's a harsh reality.
And also on the second thing is that YouTube is not for everyone.
Yeah.
We were talking about this yesterday, that if you're, let's say, a D2C brand who is growing right now, don't do YouTube. Why do you want to do YouTube? Right?
Agreed.
You will not get conversions. Your ticket size is too low to justify that price on your P&L. Right? Once, let's say, you're reaching like 100, 200, 500 crore mark, where you want brand, like you said, when your meta and performance marketing has plateaued, then you do YouTube, right? Then you have the money to sort of justify it. You can do it for longer, like long enough for it to start working. But like everyone just comes into it thinking of the hype and saying that, hey, this is not from day 30, I'm not getting. Yeah, of course you want to.
I think if you have the money, I think you can start doing it, especially if you want to do founder-led content. I think there's that storytelling. I think there is space for that, and I think like.
But that still won't help your revenue. That's still a brand,
which is fine. I think it's the long-term game, right?
Correct.
Which is the other thing.
If that's what you want to do,
yeah,
that's
the brands
fine.
don't understand that it is a long-term game.
Yes.
I think if that understanding comes in, they'll also sort of do organic properly, right? Even if you're like a soap seller, tell the best story about soap. Like, why the fuck do people buy your soap versus everything else? Like, this is the best soap for you for like these reasons, right? Just tell that story. Show me how the soap is made.
Yeah.
Like, that's such incredible content. I would want to watch that. Like, I don't know what a soap factory looks like.
That's going more towards creator, no?
No, but like the brand should be telling that story. This is the best soap. This is how we produce it. This is why it's priced like this. And this is why it should. And D2C D2C brands have that sort of flexibility. They have that leverage, and they often have that storytelling within their brand. They just don't use video for that,
Right.
which I think they should be doing.
Yeah.
If you've raised money, I think definitely go into content.
Yeah.
Like if you're like bootstrapping and you sort of have to make every rupee count, then maybe don't.
Yeah.
But if you have the money, then definitely.
Yeah. To bootstrap startups, I said forget marketing as a whole.
Yeah.
Invest in sales.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
there's a thin, not thin, there's a very thick line between what those two functions are.
Yeah.
People don't often realize it, but I say put feet on street if that's what it takes, and
Yeah.
just spend on that. Brand can be built later as well.
Correct.
So I guess I think this is a good time to ask in terms of to set up a good team, and let's take I don't know who's a great example. Maybe Ankur is one that we
Yeah.
can talk about,
Yeah.
right? Or if you know any other brands that are doing great work in India on YouTube, if there are at all, we can maybe take that as an example. I want to ask, what is an ideal team size to have, or what's the could be in-house, could be agency, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
I'm assuming agency will give you a lot together, but in-house will be a lot more cost heavy. But what is the right team to build around this?
Okay, so Ankur is a great example to take here because it's hundreds of millions of views, 13-member team. That's it. So I can tell you what the business looks like. There's sort of two verticals. There's the courses side and there's the content side. His philosophy is simple. He'll keep making content and not charging money for it. It's all free. There's no ads on any of it. There are sometimes sponsors, but again, very, very well done, very well integrated into the video. All that money on the content side goes, like it's donated. Everything that you see on YouTube, right? All of that money goes into children's education. So he doesn't make anything off of it. All the money comes from the courses business. And the reason to do content is because he wants to be the kind of person that, people know and like and enjoy. And when he does want to sell them something, which is the courses, they'll buy it from him, right? That's sort of the very, very simple two-engine model for him. Now, he has one person on the top on both sides. I was one of the person who was leading the content vertical. There was my sort of complement on the courses business. So these two people manage the whole thing. So I can tell you about my sort of vertical. There were a couple video editors. There was a researcher / strategist / script writer. There were ghostwriters, of course, and there was a distribution person. Again, another important thing was the audio engineer. I think people really underestimate what it takes to make good audio happen. A lot of video editors actually don't know how to do that. So there was also an audio engineer who did a great job. So this was our vertical. This was sort of the core team, and he has a lot of distinctions. There's sort of the core team, there's partners, there's contractors, all of that. But this was the team that essentially made it all happen. And everything that you see just comes from this team. On the courses side, there were a couple people as well, like one person sort of managing just customer experience, one person looking at tech, all of that. But again, very, very lean team, all working remotely, all working asynchronously. So a thing I like to talk about, at least on my vertical, was that if the team didn't talk for a week, the content would keep producing. The systems were so solid that you came onto Asana every day. You see your 5 tasks for the day. Again, this was something I managed, right? Okay, I had to make sure the processes were solid, the tasks were solid, and they were comprehensive and exhaustive. So you just come in, you log into your Asana, you see your 5 tasks for the day, 2 tasks for the day. You just do it, and then you're done. Like you don't have to do anything. The files that you need, they're all there. The thing you do, you'll upload on there. All of that keeps on happening, and the team doesn't really need to be like, okay, I'm following up with you for the audio that you had to edit last week. Where is the thing that needs to go out today? Nothing of that sort needs to happen.
Yeah, this is all assuming you have high agency people.
No, his selection criteria is very, very specific, and it's like highly qualified.
Yeah.
He has, like, because of who he is, right? The kind of people that want to work with him are also very specific. They're the kind of people who want to make good content, and they want to make actually, they really want to do good work, which is very, very rare in this sort of line of work.
Yeah.
A lot of people are in it just for the money. People want fame, all of that. But he is very particular in the kind of person he selects, and he is, same idea is ki I'll just get the best people. They don't need to be the best when they start at the job that they do, but they need to be the best people, and they learn on the job. So they'll get better. And so even the video editors that started, like these were all people who cold emailed him. They had a very, very elementary sample, but they were great people. And sort of they learned on the job, and they're all like doing great. Another great thing about working with Ankur is that he allows you to work with other people while you're working with him. So all of these people also had a bunch of clients, and they're making great money. I think the kind of money that none of them, I also didn't imagine I would be making, right? So I think just selecting for the right people and building a system that allows them to thrive. You're not micromanaging them. You're not, on their heads. I think that kind of work environment is so unique, and I think if other creators can replicate it, I think almost no one can at this point, or hasn't attempted to in earnest.
Very tough.
Or also they haven't been able to execute. I think people want to attempt it,
Yeah.
but they haven't been able to execute. Is this model? And I just I wish more people were able to do that. And he's like highly open, right?
Right.
So for 2 years while I was working with him, right, my salary was public. So you could see, I'm making this 13 lakhs, whatever, with him. And it was like a public Excel that people could look at. They could see, okay, how much people are making.
What's
how
the
much.
thought process behind that?
He's just a highly open person. So every year he shares his portfolio, how much he's made. He talks about the company's finances. Because he's like, I want to be very open with sort of who I am, what my business is. And so that you can learn from me. So he doesn't have any sort of inhibitions of that kind. You know what profit the company is making. You know what the revenue is making. Where are the costs going? You see all of that on public Excels in his videos. Every year at the end of the year, if you just follow Ankur, you'll see this is what I made. This is where I invested. All of that. Very, very public. And he's open about that in all aspects of his life. He'll talk about how he parents, how his relationship is, how he thinks about, parent-children relationships, how he thinks about the world, his politics, all of that. It's all out there. So I think the function and sort of the creation of the team in some ways is sort of downstream of the kind of person he is.
Yeah.
And I think perhaps it is difficult to sort of emulate because of that. But I wish more people try that.
Interesting. Very. I didn't know about this piece of his. I think the problem with anyway, we'll come back to that later. Any example of a brand who's doing great work? We covered
Windwealth comes to mind. I think Windwealth has been doing some incredible work from the start. See, there's no set blueprint, right? There's no that, hey, you get these 3 people and you'll crack YouTube, right? It really depends on the kind of videos. If you look at, again, taking Zomato as an example, I think it was Sahiba, 1 videographer, 1 editor, right? That's it. Again, in that equation, charisma took such a high share of the success that they didn't need anything else, right? So you really have to come down to what it is that you want to optimize and what do you have at your disposal, right? So let's say if you were to talk about Windwealth, they have again, this is just like based off my knowledge. They'll have 1 producer, like for each vertical. They'll have 1 scriptwriter. They'll outsource the thumbnail designing, as far as I know, and they'll have like a couple of video editors, right? That's more or less the team that you need, right? And that producer generally is also the strategist, right? Or you can get like a consulting strategist who will tell you sort of, hey, this is the title and thumbnail packaging that you need, right? On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have someone like a Nikhil Kamath, right? He has like a 20-member team for each episode, but that's more production heavy, right?
Yeah, but I guess or his numbers should be unbelievably like high to a point where he's the greatest YouTuber in the country.
Yes.
Right? But that's not happening. So I'm assuming also business is not for everybody. Fair. I think we understand that. But I guess there is, I don't know. I look at it and I feel like I know how hard it is to be in the business of production.
Yeah.
Generally. If you're going to make that a business, then you need someone who's going to live and die that life.
Yes.
It's kind of hard to do if it's a side project. That's my belief, because there are others who are doing it as passion. So they'll always beat you in it.
Yes.
And I think same principle applies to his YouTube also, I feel.
100%.
Right? Like there are people who are just obsessed with that. Like they live and die. And that's the only thing. I mean, he does 100 things. This is like 101. So how much attention is it going to get?
Yeah.
But he doesn't need it because of the network.
Correct.
I think Nitin had a big post about how much Nikhil loves it and how much it's helped Zerodha.
Yeah.
Because they used to not promote. I don't know if they're still not doing advertising. They're still not doing it, I think, right?
Were they
never
doing
did.
advertising? I don't
No,
think
he had a
They
post
never
about
did.
how they don't do advertising and
Oh, you mean as Zerodha as a company?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Zerodha doesn't do advertising.
Yeah, I know. I'm a customer of Zerodha since 2014. I started trading on the platform in December of 2014 because a friend of mine used to do it and he came and sold me the idea of discounted brokerage because the commercials worked for you, right? Otherwise, you paid a percentage whether you made or lost.
Correct.
And that was a problem. Here you had control. And I got into trading in 2014. I traded till the first half of 2015. I realized it's not my game, but I didn't lose much money. I lost like 2-3K. So I studied.
Very similar.
Right. So, but now I'm good at it. Like not good at it. I don't lose money. Like I do decently well.
Yeah.
At least I know how to read balance sheets now. So when I looked at their disclaimers that they would put in the forms back then itself, they said they don't believe in advertising. Also, I think there were regulations that governed which prohibited a stockbroker from doing certain things. So the referral became the thing. So the model is great. So if I referred you, I would make a 0.2% commission on everything that you earn
Really?
for eternity or some shit like that. So my
Ankur
friend
used to have that on our channel, right? Until we became too big and then the regulators were like, oh, you can't do that. You can't promote Zerodha anymore. So that was a great sort of revenue thing. for all these financial creators
Yeah,
for a long time.
they shut it down. Like
Yeah.
last week it came out, right? So the deal with 01 Network, and I know, was a great deal. You know what the deal was? It was you get paid. I think the channel in question that I knew was getting paid 2 CR a year.
What?
Okay,
How big was the channel?
GrowthX, right?
God.
2 CR a year for doing nothing but putting a logo on the top right corner.
01 by 0 da.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So GrowthX is ordered at like 700K.
Yeah, around that I think.
Yeah,
So what I was told was that they just like cover the expenses and you get to say that I'm part of
2 CR.
one. I think that's on the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah, I think
if
like
you already
my
have a
client
brand,
was also
then
doing that, was not paid that much.
yeah,
maybe the leverage difference. Maybe
Yeah.
Varun Maya makes more. I don't know.
yeah.
But I don't know if this number is true. It's a hearsay. I'm an investor on it, but I still don't get their P&L and balance sheets and all that. But this is just what I've heard.
Right.
So yeah, just to come back on that team size, right? So the answer is no optimum team size, which is you could be.
See,
whatever.
I'll say the number of people that you need for sure, right? You need a video editor, you need a video producer / strategist, you need a production person, right? Whatever capacity, and then you just like sort of expand it.
I think design is also very important. I forgot about the designer Advariko. Sorry to her. She was a great designer as well.
Yeah, I'd say for smaller teams, the video editor should pair up as a designer.
I
because
think we
you
can
don't
talk
have
about that.
much-
I think the video editing market is a mess. It's a
It's a
big
huge
mess.
mess.
The disparity in the kinds of edits people do, the kinds of thinking they have, the kinds of design understanding
See,
they have.
again, that's
that
because they
varies a
don't
lot.
have experience of working in an organization that teaches them those things. Everyone has entered the market as, hey, I did a 3-month AV course, which is great, by the way, great like crash course into the creator economy. But I did a 3-month AV course, I got a job, and now I'm in, right? They are not going through the grunt work of, hey, I'm part of an agency, I'm on an account for like 6 months, 1 year. Like I'm understanding the nitty gritties of it. I'm understanding how to communicate. So many editors, when they're talking to clients on like a $5K or a $10K ticket, they won't have their cameras on. Like I'm not comfortable putting them on like a client call, and when the client is like, hey, who is this, they'll come on Slack, they'll have, this happened with me last week. He put a display picture, and he's a 17 or 18-year-old kid, okay? He put a display picture, and then the client is like, dude, how old is the editor? And then it clicked for me, hey, like I really need to think about culture and like professionalism.
Professionalism isn't there in the
Yeah.
freelance market
At all.
Yeah, any of the creatives, I think we have this problem with freelancers, we have this problem with agencies as well, right? Timeliness isn't there,
Yes.
professionalism isn't there, communication is really, really bad.
Yes.
People will say they'll do one thing and they'll do another. You'll be promised something and they won't deliver on
Yeah.
it. That's like a big pervading problem.
And I think
that's why
that's-
the churn is so high in this
Yeah.
industry, because people aren't happy. Like you give someone 10 lakhs a month and you're not happy with the output at
Yeah.
that point, what are you going to do?
I think that's also one of my unpopular opinions, that a lot of the creator-led agencies are going to die very soon, right? In the next like maybe year or so, because now, especially with AI, they are competing with so many more people who are now enabled to service the same account, right? So think about it, like creator-led agencies are, hey, I build distribution. Now I have this 100K number on my Instagram that everyone clearly looks at, and that's a huge, massive leverage point, which is great. And then you get the account, and everyone looks at, like everyone is like, hey, I want to come work with this person, he's a big creator. But when you look at their team, you look at the way that they operate, he has no idea how to run a business, he has no idea how to run a team. For example, I'll give you like, who's the guy from Bits, Ishan Sharma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ishan Sharma recently hit like 1 million or something, right? He put up a team of his, and we can put it on the screen. He put up a picture of his team. Everyone on the team is like 20 years old, right? And he talks about how he went and interviewed like the Notion founder when he went to Bay Area, and he did all of this. And he's a great creator, by the way. But can you really imagine like $1 billion company giving their account to like an agency like that and being like, hey, these 20-year-olds are going to service me the same as someone who's been like a veteran for 5 years, right? Or 10 years. You can't. And I'm not taking, and even if you were to say that, hey, creators understand distribution better, they are more like social native and video native and all of this, they still don't know operations, they don't know systems, they don't know how to transfer the knowledge that they have understood onto their team members, right? So it's a very clear difference. That's why like a team like Ankur's, I was just so amazed looking at the people, because every single person that you meet, you understand that, hey, Ankur was able to sort of transfer that knowledge, and that person was able to pick it up to a certain extent.
Yeah, these are also like very, very young people, right? Early to mid 20s, the whole team. And like they were able to do it, I was able to do it. And I think it is downstream.
I have another controversial thesis on this. I don't hire people under the age of 25. They just don't, they don't have the, especially Gen Zs. Yeah, I don't hire people under the age
How
of
old are you?
25. I'm turning 29 this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
he just made the mark. Just saying, that's why you guys are working together.
I've been working in the industry for 7 years.
Yeah, like especially video editors. I just don't.
Right. Fair. So I want to ask you, what is more important, the content or the distribution?
I think a lot of people ask us that, oh, how are you going to distribute? I think it's the same thing. Like, what's the difference between content and distribution?
Like, you can't get distribution without content.
Yeah. Like, good content has inbuilt distribution.
Yeah.
So many, like, we had a client ask us just last week that, hey, like, oh, we're making these videos, but like, how are you going to distribute them? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, you make good videos, YouTube will distribute.
YouTube is the sort of distribution for us.
Yeah.
You make content and you just click on the upload button. That's it.
Yeah.
It's a very advertising marketing question because they're two different worlds.
Yeah.
There are two different sets of agencies that specialize on each, and that's just how it's structured.
Yeah.
Right. Again, it's a factory system, so people do what they're good at, and then they distribute it like an assembly line. But this is the question that gets asked in our line of work often. But that's the right answer. I think today's day and age, I guess this is the thing.
Content is distributed.
Credit is a great example. But what people don't know is they blew 60 CR on distribution in that campaign. But they didn't spend as much to make it.
Yeah.
They probably spent 1/6 of that. But that's been the traditional format in our line of work. So alcohol, for example, follows a 1:9 ratio. So they spend 1 rupee to make content. They spend 9 to distribute it. Because we also have limitations because of the category. But others follow 1:4, 1:5 as a model. So when we go and present like a good concept for an ad film, sometimes it gets rejected because they don't have 3 times the money to promote it. And they don't want to pull it out. It's very different thinking. But I want to ask from a YouTube perspective, which I agree. I guess, yeah. So how do you, for example, decide then what kind of content to create? Or what are the checkpoints to keep in mind if you were to
That is the strategy. That's the secret sauce.
So great. So how do you build that, right? From a layman's perspective, how do you build that skill inwardly? Is it by consuming a lot and decoding? Or is it just trying a lot and figuring out, like you said, 100 videos? Is that the method to go about
Consumption, creation, all of those are important. But again, I think you need to have that analytical power. I guess it depends on what the question is, right? If the question is how do you build that analytical ability, it can't come in until you've done the consumption, until you've seen what the end product looks like and thought about what it took to create it. Of course, you can only get to a certain point, and I think maybe that's where your sort of advice on getting into a job which teaches you something like that, because since I was on the sort of journey with Ankur, right, I could see what does it take to create like 100 million view channel, right? I could see what the operations look like. I could see the backbone. I could see the business. And I think without that, I wouldn't be where I am right now. I wouldn't be starting my own business until I had that. So I think you definitely need that. Once you figure that part out, strategy is just figuring out, okay, this is my brand, this is my persona, this is whatever it is. See what is unique about me, see what the brand, what the world is doing, see all the competitors, seeing where my wedge is, what am I bringing to the table that is not existing, am I bringing a new perspective to it, am I bringing a new format to it, am I bringing something, am I bringing energy that does not exist. If not, I think it's probably not worth it unless you really want to be in the long game just to do it, if you're not bringing something new. But if you are bringing something new, I think most people are bringing something to it. If you're a YouTube strategist, if you're like an advertiser, if you're like a business person who sort of makes widgets, right, you probably have something to you that is making your business work. Just find that thing and you sort of talk about it. I think at the end of the day, that is it. You sort of figure out what are the stories around the widget, what are the stories around your skill, what are the stories around you, and you just tell those stories.
Right.
And what our job is then to figure out how to package it, how to structure it, how to make it clickable, how to make people watch it. Just sort of add those elements to it. And I think that's sort of the perfect combination of it.
Yeah. I'll ask you a question, and I mean applies to you also. Do you think what we do, like YouTube strategy, not just like the surface level, like the deep YouTube, do you think it can be taught?
It is difficult to teach, and of course we've had that problem.
No, let me rephrase. Do you think it can be learned?
I think it can be learned.
We can teach it to a certain extent.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be learned.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
I'll tell you why. YouTube is all about algorithms, right? And I think as they are evolving, they're getting to the point where each algorithm is becoming increasingly personal, right? So what ends up happening is that people are put in some sort, like almost like a pigeonhole, right? If you are recommended a certain type of content, you will more or less be recommended that type of content only. Every now and then, of course, YouTube, like the algorithm might change in 6 months, but so far what I've noticed is you get recommended like similar type of things, right? That's why even though we might be very similar, his feed will be very different than my feed, right? So the ability, the YouTube strategy boils down to, hey, can you zoom out and can you understand how that is working? right? It's not just that, hey, like, why did this thing come on my feed? But can you understand the first principles? Look at his feed and be like, hey, why did this come on his feed, right? And I don't think that can be taught.
I
think
disagree with
that's a very innate sense that almost everyone that I have met, right? No one has learned it, right? Like, no one has been like, hey, I did this one course and they had that sort of sixth sense of, like, they just understood it, right? Like, it's taste. And I think if it can be taught, then AI can do it. I just, like, fundamentally, to be a cracked YouTube strategist, you just need to have it in you. It's one of those specific knowledge skill sets that cannot be fully transferred.
I think if you're a smart person, you can become a YouTube strategist.
That is, if you're a smart person, you can do anything.
So that is the thing, right?
Yeah.
We're operating in that.
But can you make a non-smart person into a smart person?
I mean, that's what we try to do with education, and we have our outcomes.
You're also, this debate is also under the current talent pool in YouTube, right? That's going to expand tomorrow. For example, you chose to leave consulting and do this. Probably 10 others will do it every year from now, which means in 10 years you have 100 people, you have 100 more Adils. So that becomes, as and how YouTube becomes more lucrative, I think it'll bring more people into it, and then it'll become a battle for attention, right? A bit like OTTs and web series, for example. There's so many web series that are made, but few stand out as being really good. And then people create a reputation for being good at it, and then they go on and create more and more shows, right? So I guess something like that will happen, where more and more people will come into this field, and that this problem will be solved.
Yeah, I want to take an example here, right? Here in Bangalore, we have my friends here at Lit School, right? They're trying to make that happen. They're taking smart people coming out of high school,
making them creators,
and they're teaching them through the creative framework. So I was taught through the more academic philosophy, political science sort of framework, but these guys are being taught essentially the same things.
Yeah, but not everyone coming out of it is going to be like a cracked person.
Of course, same as like not everyone coming out of a normal university is going to be like
of course, that's my point.
A billionaire or whatever.
Yeah, that's my point. That you can't fully teach that to anyone. You need to have some level of natural talent.
You have to run on those like large big numbers, right? You have to be like, okay, 100 people are coming into my university, 70 of them are turning out to be above average YouTube strategists, or above average academics, or above average economists, whatever it might be. And I think you always have to rely on the big numbers here, because if you're running an institution, and that's how you can do it, right? The way to teach people is by building an institution, building these sort of getting these teachers to come in and teach as many people as they can. And your hope is that some people will come out of the program, come out of that institution, who will be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like a top, when I say YouTube strategist, I mean like a top 1% person. I don't mean like a normal person who has maybe scaled one channel, gotten lucky somewhere and be like, hey, okay, now I'll do I don't mean that.
Yeah.
I mean a person who has a Midas touch. He can go anywhere. He has self-awareness. Like he or she can go and be like, hey, do this thing, and in the next 3 months, like your channel is popping off, right? Like that. I'm talking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
That can't be taught.
I mean, the hope is that when you teach enough people,
of course, it elevates.
Someone out of it.
Yeah, of course. Like,
same with right.
Rising tide raises all ships, right? So you elevate the overall this thing, but a top 1% you can't.
Right.
No, but you want to give them. You want to create places. You want to create avenues. Just as AVTV
you want
is
to
doing,
facilitate
just
the
as like Lit School is doing.
Sure, yeah.
You create those environments so that you can get these people out in the ecosystem.
Of course, yeah.
Right. Fair. So I think as the ecosystem evolves, you'll find more examples,
of
and
course,
then I think the level of talent or base level talent required will also start going up.
For sure, that's already happening, right?
Right.
And I think Bangalore is the best place for that to happen.
Right. Is it? What is the reason for that?
Varun Maya.
Really?
Yeah. The amount of, I think now their agency is 200 people across all their verticals is like 100, 200 more people. Like so, you have a hardcore concentration of YouTube first people in Bangalore, right? And that becomes a pull for so many other people to know that hey, that's sort of their entry point. Right, he really did work on that vision of hey, like I'm going to be the TCS, and much like how TCS was the entry point for a lot of people into the IT corporate world, that hey, like dollars is a thing, and you're working for foreign clients, and you're coming into a corporate environment. He did build a corporate environment. Right now, we can debate on like the quality of it and all of that. That's a separate, but he was like a revolutionary that way to sort of break the market open. And I think there is no ecosystem like this in Delhi. There can't be an ecosystem like this in Bombay because Bollywood is too deeply ingrained into the culture.
And if you're half decent at this, you just go to Bollywood.
Yeah, right. So the only other place for you to be if you want to be in content is Bangalore.
But this I'm guessing a start, right? Like, for example, Sriram, who used to do some work with us a few months ago, I think he went to Pondicherry because he had an opportunity to set up a co-working plus a YouTube kind of a community studio center type of place where people would come and leverage each other's strengths to make content, etc. So as content becomes more mainstream, and like I think there are a lot of people trying to replicate Varun's business model, right? I've been seeing, reading, etc. about people wanting to set up YouTube management bits. I think Ayush is doing something like that. Ayush Wadhwa.
Yeah.
At Owl is
I
got a
think he
Hooked,
was.
right?
Yeah.
I think Hooked
I don't
is
know.
the thing. Vidhu did some work there.
Lit is doing. Lit School
Yeah.
is doing.
So everyone's trying to get into that, right? Because that's, I think, but I feel like, again, this also is subject to how many brands or how many commercial entities respect this avenue, and then how the economics of that plays. I feel there is no market even now. I feel being a second mover is better than being first. That's my take
I
to this
agree,
right now. But I feel this will start spreading to other parts of the country, if not the world, for sure.
For sure.
Right? I think you're right about the fact that there is a dearth of talent. And I think it's a great model that you create your own creators, you train your own editors, and then let's use them. Agencies have tried this for a while and failed, but because also business model is different and you're unable to do it. But I think I'm a little bit more hopeful about it, saying hope there are going to be more cities than just us who are going to like create this.
I want Bangalore to be like the place for content.
I mean,
we always want like good creators to come in because we're always looking for good people to come and work with us.
Right. So, where does channel membership lie in this now? Because I have a lot of questions on this, which is, I always felt Ankur Warikoo model was the most optimum model to take. It's a freemium model, which is you have your primary service or primary channel, which is free and nothing monetized, and then you build a lot of supplementary products and services around your brand, which creates monetization. I think everyone's doing that in the world. And I feel maybe Nikhil Kamath is the only one not doing it because he doesn't need to. I think it's an exception. But everybody else has something or the other going around and that does it. Or like big podcasters in India, for example, charge their guests. So they make monetization out of that, right? Whatever it might be. Where does channel membership come? What kind of a creator is it suited for? And why should someone do it or not do it?
Kevin Kelly has that amazing essay about 1000 True Fans, right? So for people who don't know, it's about for you to be sustainable as a creator, all you need is 1000 people who will pay you $1,000 over the course of your career. Right, so a true fan is defined as someone who, let's say if you're an author, they would buy your Kindle, paperback, hardcover, audiobook, they'll drive across the country to come and get a copy signed. Like, that's a true fan, right? So I think the primary goal for any creator, brand, whatever, should be to build true fans, right? Because the minute you have true fans, the ability to monetize goes through the roof because there is a transfer of true value happening, right? And the minute they feel like, hey, I'm getting so much, I want to give back, right? There are creators that I feel like, oh, this was an incredible video, I want to give you something, right? That's when these things sort of kick in.
This is another thing. So I was just thinking about the example of Dropout, which is, if you
Oh, yeah,
remember
that's an
College Humor,
amazing-
right?
yeah.
College Humor sort of turned into Dropout and now everything is gated.
Correct.
So if you subscribe on YouTube, which
Yeah,
I
that's
do,
a very unique business model.
it's not about deepening a relationship. The only way to get their content is through paid. What they do is the distribution strategy is entirely short form. So they take clips from their premium shows. All shows are premium actually. They take shots from their shows. They put them out there and they're incredible shows, right? Improv, comedy, sort of some fantasy, all of that stuff. These are great short forms and which are great funnels for their premium content. So the only way to watch the full episode is through that. So I don't particularly have like a parasocial relationship with any of the cast members of the show. But I love the content. And because I want to watch the content, the only way to do it is by going premium, by paying them.
That's
OTT model.
one side. Yeah, that's one side. That like the content is so good that you're compelled to go. Like the value of you watching it does not is like far more than whatever money that you're paying for it, right? On the other side, there's a platform called Nebula. Nebula was started by I think 5 or 6 creators. Wendover Productions, great, huge Faceless channel. Thomas Frank, people know him for his Notion tutorials. And the idea was that you already have your organic distribution on YouTube. Nebula is a place for you to just like, it's like Vimeo. You have a feed, it's very similar to YouTube. It does not have an algorithm. It doesn't show you view numbers, right? So for you to watch certain videos of your creator, you have to go to Nebula, and it's a very profitable, healthy business.
It's also very crazy because it's a worker co-op. So these people own Nebula together.
Yes.
So they share the profits as well.
Yes.
So it's very interesting in that
So
way.
it's like a watch time thing that, hey,
Yeah.
the amount of watch time that you drive for the platform is how you get paid.
Right.
Right. So there are multiple different ways of going about it. Again, I would come down to the same equation, right? Like, what is the access? What's the value of your content? What's the quality that you are providing? And then overall, what is like the charisma/personality that you're adding on top?
Right. Interesting. So, is Instagram an easier platform to start building this around as step one? Because I see a lot of random influencers from tier 2, tier 3 towns having a membership, and all they do is they just post thirst trap content, for example, right? And then they're earning a lot of money out of it.
Yeah.
I think it's probably higher than some of the retainers we would earn from accounts, for example, right? I think that's a reality of what's happening on ground.
Yeah.
And I feel if the buy-in is so cheap as 1 rupee or 5 rupees, 10 rupees, I think people will spend more they'll find ways to spend more than that, right? And especially if there are government schemes to give every graduate who doesn't have a job 21K a month, whatever the fuck that is, right? That I think enables a lot of this stuff too in terms of society, in our society. So is that going to be a model like, do you see, for example, OnlyFans, right? This is not OnlyFans, but this is some kind of fans.
It's close to it, for
right?
sure.
It's close to it. So are we going to see more of that in society going forward, or will like all forms of content someday become on demand on that nature?
I don't think so. I think freemium will stay.
Yeah.
You have to have a public outlet. You want to build a big funnel, right? And then you sort of get them into your premium content. Either it be thirst trap or short films. I think there's no way around it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well.
And yeah, on your question on Instagram, right? Instagram is quite easy. A lot of people out there, easy to create content as well. Whatever kind of content you want to make, easier than YouTube for sure, and you make the same money, right? If you're charging people just for an image, which is how a lot of these accounts operate. I was actually trying to analyze that industry the other day because I saw like a big tweet about it, and yeah, there's a lot of money people are making that just by sort of like risque photos.
I think the idea there is not that, like, the content is not what's driving those numbers, right? It's not that, oh, the content is amazing and I'm gonna go watch it. It's the human desire that, hey, I want to watch a certain type of content, right? You can replace that person with another person, and I think the model will still work. So will everyone do it? No, I don't think everyone can do it, right? Like, even if, let's say, I had 100,000 followers tomorrow and I started like, what will I show? Like, what will I show that people want, right? So I think it also depends on the industry. It depends the type of content that you are making. It depends, like, are you able to generate that interest, right? That I want more. Latent was probably one of the most profitable shows for membership, right? He is pulling whatever, like 40 million views an episode, like, incredible. I want to watch that next episode because the value in this one is so fucking high, right? Can you say the same for all comedy shows? No. Can you say the same for any different type of long form? Like, if Samdesh has membership shows, right? But I'm not into politics. So the value for me is, I'm like, hey, it's okay if I don't watch this, right? But somehow it's part of the culture zeitgeist. I want to be in. He made a cult, right? So I want to be part of that cult, and I'm willing to pay the price, right? So I think it's that, like, what value are you getting? So will everyone start doing it? No. I don't think it works for everyone, but I think people who understand how to, like, really crack it will make, like, a shit ton of money doing it.
Right. Fair. What are some of the highest paid niches in YouTube in India?
Nothing bigger than finance, right? At the height of edtech, there was nothing like it.
Closest to money.
Yeah. You want to get money, right? You want to get people who have the money, and you want to get them to spend money. Whatever niche yours is, right? I know ki these niches, again, we were talking about Acquired before the meeting started, or the podcast started, right? They make like millions and millions from that. Just, it's a podcast.
Yeah, they make like some 200K per integration, something like that. Like 6 figures per integration.
Yeah, and because like the CEOs watch it, right? The people who make the biggest decisions watch it.
Yeah, even Lenny's podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to get the right people who have the spending capacity, and you want to talk to them about things that will allow them to spend more money. If you are in that niche, you're going to make money.
Yeah. It's as simple as, like, you go to people who are making money, and then you can charge them higher, right?
Interesting.
So let's say if you're if you're making content for women, then go for makeup, right? Or if you're like luxury content will make more money, or if you're working for a high-end I don't know, car manufacturer, you'll make more money. So it's just like wherever the ticket sizes are higher or the volume of sale is higher, will make more money,
Right.
more or less.
Interesting. This is also connected to that bubble phenomena we spoke about earlier. So, like for example, is AI very lucrative today to make content around AI?
Somewhere you have to be in the top sort of percentile to make the big money.
Right.
There's a lot of I hate the AI content space right now. There's so much grift in it. 100 people will be like, oh, watch this one Claude video and it'll change your life and you'll make millions of rupees. Use this prompt and comment prompt to get my free toolkit that'll give you 10x returns on your business or whatever, and then I'll funnel you into my course and I'll funnel you into my sort of whatever thing I want to sell to you. I think that's a big problem, and the conversions are low there, the value is low, and it's just inflated views. I think if you're on the top with someone like Lenny, when he gets someone on to his sort of podcast where you're actually getting industry practitioners on, if you're getting if you're getting Dario on your podcast, or if you're getting Amanda Scale on your podcast, and you're talking about what does it take to actually make these things happen, or if you're getting one of these the maker of Claude Code, for instance, right, and he's coming and talking to you about this is how I actually make my workflows happen. If you're at that level, if you're talking about things that actually create value, I think you're in a completely different zone, in a completely different sort of space compared to everyone else in the market. Because who's sort of advertising on my video on Claude Code, like my 100th video on Claude Code, sort of prompt pack that I'm trying to sell to you.
Yeah. Fear is a short-term strategy.
Yeah.
True.
Right? And everyone is selling fear right now.
Is that why coaches are all? It's always a market for coaches. Like it seems like every other day there's one new coach coming up.
Yeah, we live in volatile times, right? You need someone who can tell you what to do. If you don't have that, you just feel sort of lost.
Yeah.
That's what I call it. But yeah, I mean, I've had my theories on coaches, and otherwise I've been very vocal about it. I don't know who develops or improves through that kind of a course. I mean, I don't know. I just think the world's the greatest teacher out there, so should go and execute.
I think there's value to expertise, but the problem is the noise is so high. You don't know if the expert is actually an expert.
Yeah.
If you don't know the coach actually has lived a life, right?
Yeah.
There's so many life coaches, and I'm like, did you have a life? Like, what did you actually do in your life?
Yeah.
How are you able to teach me? And I'm sure there are great people, and I know people who have had their lives changed by having access to a great mentor, right? Like I know, at least with Ankur, like he was mentoring me while I was working with him, right?
Yeah.
And that was a big unlock for me.
Sure.
Same, there's a bunch of other people like that out in the world
Yeah.
who mentor you, and I think there's tremendous value to them. But
Absolutely.
if you're just like buying a course, how do you get that? Like, how do you make sure that the person is genuine? There's no way to do it, or there's like difficult ways to do it, I suppose.
Yeah. It's amazing when someone who worked in an organization that sold courses tells you that. I guess proves my theory.
Yeah, that's why the content is so important, right? Because you've seen Ankur's like entire life, because you've seen his actual P&L.
Yeah.
That's why you can trust him.
True.
I don't know the third, like 100th Instagram coach that's coming and telling his story. Oh, he's on the stage with a mic and he's doing something. And I'm like, I don't know your story.
Yeah.
And that's why I'll trust Ankur 100 times more than any of these random people.
True. Absolutely. Who's the biggest YouTuber in the country today? Is it Carrie Minati? In terms of subscribers? I think T-Series is the biggest account,
T-Series
right?
is biggest.
But that's a
Couple
name.
of big-
That's
yeah.
a faceless account. We'll talk about that too.
Big in terms of just numbers or like influence?
Yeah, in terms of numbers. I mean, from a YouTube
There's
perspective.
Baby Billion.
Right.
They run out of Diamond District.
Oh, is it? Oh, shit.
Yeah, they run out of my apartment building. Yeah, I think they're the fastest growing channel.
Right.
I don't know how many subscribers they have, but they are growing faster than Mr. Beast.
Right.
So they've done a
What do
phenomenal
they do?
job.
I've never heard of them.
It's all kids content.
Kids content.
Oh.
Baby billion.
Kids content, yeah.
Right. Makes sense.
So subscriber count.
There's more population in that TV.
And repeat
Yeah,
viewership,
you want to
right?
keep watching the
makes
nursery
sense.
rhyme every day.
Yeah.
Oh, they're very loyal.
Yeah.
Have you I don't know what cartoon you watched, but I watch all episodes and I
Yeah.
watch repeats and reruns.
100%.
So from a YouTube revenue standpoint, it's clear. I think the metrics define how much you earn and it's standardized. I guess it's the same across the platform. How do you negotiate deals outside of it? Like, for example, I'm assuming a Carrie Minati would have a certain rate for collaborations and integrations versus a Baby Billion for that matter, right? Is there any metric to doing that from a YouTube world?
Yeah.
Or is it the same as every other brand collaboration in the real world? Like it's
I
just
think it's a
you
mix
throw
of
fee.
the metrics, it's a mix of authority, it's a mix of engagement, right? You need to have an engaged audience, you need to have sort of authority outside of that audience, and you need to have good numbers. So I think a good mix of this is all that matters. if some people sort of optimize for one thing, so they'll get a lot of views, but they won't have an engaged audience, right? So if you sell something to them, no one will buy. You can have a community, they're all like high intent even, but if the numbers are low, you'll get low money. If the third thing again, the authority or sort of the knowledge outside of your niche, like with someone like Ankur, right? He can demand a premium even on top of those things because he is well known and he's sort of respected in some ways outside of even these things. So he'll have another premium on top of that. So this is sort of how I look at it, at least.
Yeah, it's also purchasing power. Let's say you can sell the same audience or distribution to, let's say, a seed startup versus a Series D or a listed company. You get two very massively different prices. There's no blueprint, to be very honest. I think you mentioned Gary Minati, right? Very interestingly, there's an incredible, I think it's a Dostcast interview or something with his influencer marketing manager or his business partner, basically, which is his uncle. And I know this because on our podcast, we did like a influencer marketing roundup deep dive. So I went through all of these interviews. It's very like you need to have a partner who knows how to negotiate and you need to know how to value yourself, right? So this is like your classic pricing model, right? Like how do you price yourself? You can price yourself saying that, hey, this is the value I'm providing. Right, so let's say you're selling to like a person with a bigger wallet, and then the same thing is going to be like valued more to them, right? Market forces are a big thing here, right? Let's say if a startup is blitzscaling, like you ask them like a 3x price, they'll pay you, right? So it really depends. I would say there's no blueprint. There are some fundamentals that you need to know. You need to know the market, what the rates are.
The average rates, and then you sort of figure it out.
Right,
and you figure it out from there.
Got it. So that's what even we do, by the way. Just to like be clear, I try to figure out what that brand's TAM is like, and what's their revenue, and who are they selling it to, and what's the average cost that you would earn per user or per customer, and then we reverse calculate it. That's what I would do from a services standpoint. If I was ever to do any kind of integrations, I would probably look at it the same lens.
Correct.
And I think you also would have I think being human beings, we all think we have a perceived value of ourselves, which I think is a multiple that plays into it.
Yeah.
I guess that would be the thing.
I think the simplest way to look at it is that to just ask, what does this mean to you? Like if I'm a creator, I've done a bunch of these recently. I just ask the brand that, hey, you're doing this. Why are you coming to me? How important is this? And what is the outcome that you're hoping for?
Yeah.
There's just simple 3 questions. So if the outcome is that, hey, we want conversions, I'm probably not the right person for that, right? Or this campaign that you brought to me is not the right campaign for that because I can't promise it.
Right.
Then I'll just be like, hey, this is my minimum. And generally it's like half my rent or like it's my rent cost. And I'm like, hey, okay, one brand deal, one rent. That's like my framework. Or if they come and say that, hey, no, this is eventually going to go into, fits into the bigger picture and that helps us raise more money. So I'm like, okay, so you're raising this much money. So that's the value. Let's backtrack from there. So if you're doing this, my audience, my kind of content that I make, it's English, I show them the data. I'm like, hey, this is the number that I came to. Right. So I think coming to that value is very important. A lot of people just look at, hey, this is the average, this is what I can charge. I talk to a lot of my friends who are handling enterprise accounts in their agencies, right? Let's say if you're working with like an Airtel, a Jio, Reliance, and I'm like, hey, if let's say I'm a 100K Instagram person, right? Influencer, how much can I charge per reel if my average engagement is, let's say 75,000 views, right? And they'll be like, dude, they'd be willing to go up to like 3 lakhs a reel. And I was like, I was thinking that it's 1:1. If I'm getting 75, I can ask for 75, right? They're like, no, they just have bigger accounts. So it's also understanding the back end of it, right? True. Like a lot of these companies don't, it's very interesting, they don't manage their accounts themselves. They're like, hey, we have a 100 crore budget, give it to an agency. Like, dude, you just get me this bigger KPI. It does not matter where it's coming from. I just want that number at the end of the day. So if you have a good relationship with your agency, then you can just be like, just give me more. Right? So that's what I try to do. That hey, like just become good friends with that person. So either in their current role, in the next role, I can be like, dude, I want more, give me more. And if your content is good, you'll get it.
Makes sense. We need to talk about this because you brought this up to me a year ago. I think we were sitting in Toit and then you spoke to me about Faceless YouTube channels.
Yeah.
And while it's so simple and understandable, for some weird reason, it was in front of me, but I never saw it. Right? Because like we spoke about, I was also someone who was not comfortable being in front of camera. I hated it throughout. So I never thought about being there until like very late in my life when I realized, okay, there are business benefits to being there. It also, I think, comes from being introverted. And I guess there's that famous Tim Ferriss quote. I think we spoke about it on your podcast as well. But he says that I'm an introvert who understands the benefits of being an extrovert. It's a great line, right? But I think looking at that today, I think it offers a lot of such people an opportunity to create content without actually putting yourself out there. And then you spoke to me about the numbers and the earnings that some of these channels are doing, and I was blown away. Please enlighten who was listening to this.
Yeah.
What is that world like?
So I'll take a couple of examples because maybe it's easier to understand. I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and we talk about this a lot. There's a channel out of Australia called Coves. Okay, Qoves. You can just search it on YouTube. They sell aesthetic transformation services. Okay, they have a digital product where they'll be like, hey, you put up a picture of your face, and they'll say that, hey, if you do these 5 things, you'll look better, right? This should be the hairstyle. This should be your the way that you trim your beard, the kind of clothes you wear, or this is the therapy that you should take, so on and so forth. The whole point is we'll make you look better, right? They have an incredible YouTube strategy, right? What they say is that they'll take deep sort of scientific concepts and they'll make it more relatable. So they'll take examples like, why does this hairstyle look better on this actor, right? And then they'll go into face shapes. Or they'll be like, hey, this angle of the eyebrow makes you look like this, right? So it's entirely faceless, extremely highly produced, and extremely interesting content. Right. Then on the other hand, you have this entire ecosystem, and you will find it on Twitter a lot, of people just starting and scaling multiple YouTube channels that are completely faceless but themed. So there's a guy, he has a portfolio of, let's say, I think 20 to 50 different channels. He has one channel only on World War II aircrafts. He will pick one aircraft for one country, do an entire deep dive for 15 minutes, and it'll all be like images. And this is pre-AI. So now with AI, you can make like any image that you want, right? I know a person that lives in Bali. He's a British guy, 26, 27 years old. He runs a portfolio of channels, I think 25 to 30 of them, that are all about the solar system. His biggest one has 3 million subscribers. It's called Solar Balls. It is an entire Marvel universe he has created about each planet, each moon, each asteroid having a personality in a face. And it's a story. It's an entire ecosystem. And he does, I think, like $10-20 million a year, right, across his portfolio. Now he's getting into this other niche that I'm really bullish on, is that if you watch Fern videos, these are incredible documentary style video essays that are completely based on Blender 3D graphics. Right? It'll be like this really visually, I wouldn't say aesthetic, but like really strong videos with like these 3D, right? 3D graphics, and it's very simple, right? But then you'll have camera movements, and it's just like, it's something that you've never seen before, right? Then the channel that we were looking at right now, I think it's called Chloe versus History or Emily versus History, something like that. Someone has used, I would imagine, Kling.
I think either C-Dance or VO. That's my sense at least.
So C-Dance or VO. And they have made like a 15-minute vlog of a girl that looks and talks like someone that is like was born as a Gen Z or a millennial. But she has gone on the Titanic, right? And she has gone to like Greece in like 350 BC. Right, and you see, and it's so realistic that you're interested. Like you're like, hey, you are creating this universe that I want to be a part of. Like the minute you have a good idea, and it's all fundamentally storytelling, right? It like the form factor can change, but at the end of the day, you're telling compelling stories. So if you can tell compelling stories, you can find a way to do it faceless, right? And then of course there's nuances of long form, short form, this and that, whatever. But it all comes down to, can you tell good stories? And there are hundreds of examples that we can talk about that have done incredibly well. But if it's a good story, people will watch it.
There's also like the slope thing, right? There's a lot of content that is minimally produced. And that is sort of the difference between something like that and something like Chloe versus History. It shouldn't just be you giving a prompt of, a kitten saving a baby. That can't be the prompt, and that can't be the entire thesis of your video, because you're not going to get a community out of it.
Yeah.
You'll
and
get
to that point, you have these. Have you seen that one where all the food are like people, and then that dude is like walking on dosa sambar?
Yes.
And so that's slop. It'll get views, but again, it won't get the community, and it won't.
How are you going to make money out
it's
of
not,
that?
It's not sustainable.
Right. And with AI coming in, and I guess not coming, it's already here. This level of craft that you need to add from a human lens is so much more important, right?
Correct.
Because like you said, if the prompt is weak, then you all end up having, so I'll give you an example here. Most times when we interview people, at final round, we give them a small problem to solve, okay, an assignment. The number of times I have had like 3 applicants send in the same output, right? Because they're just copy pasting
They have the
into
default chat GPT and the
free version, right? So
Yeah.
and for whatever, and it's identical. So sometimes you get 2 different applications, and then those people don't know each other, and you're looking at it, and I'm like, what the hell,
Yeah.
right? It's such a, so that's also weak. Like we weed out people like that as well, saying that it's just weak approach to work. But this is bound to happen, I guess, in content as well, where I think yesterday there was an example. I think Godrej or someone has just made a logo, and it's a direct mirror replica of an existing brand from Europe or somewhere. And they were talking about how someone must have prompted it and then got it, and etc. So this is going to happen a lot in content space, right? Where people are going to use AI, and then as a function, if you're mediocre, it'll be very visible, and also there's a real chance of it being looking alike. And there needs to come through a good layer of human craft, I guess.
You do need a craft person at the end of the day, right? I see that problem everywhere. I think because people think AI is just doing the job, their level of care about the output is way lower, right? I've seen full page advertisements on sort of newspaper which had problems with the text because the image was AI generated. Like your own logo had a text problem, which means there's such a fundamental problem with your company. If your sort of food on Zomato looks so bad, it looks visibly AI generated, that that is a big indictment of your company for me. You don't care enough about your food to even like have a accurate photo on your sort of Zomato. That to me is like, I think people will lose trust if they see that kind of output.
CMOs around the corporate world are desperate to show to CFOs that they're saving money by using AI. And hence, I don't know what they do with all the save money. It's a different thing altogether, right? But there is a real push in the corporate field for that.
My consulting business is entirely AI native. So there's a lot of numbers that go into making content. There's also a lot of taste that goes into making content. What people think using AI in content is, you go to ChatGPT and you're like, give me 10 ideas for finance content, give me 10 ideas for makeup content, give me 10 ideas for, automobiles, I don't know. And you get those ideas and you're like, ChatGPT, give me 10 scripts now. And you'll get it and you present it and you're done. Which is like the worst way you could be using AI. You're worse than anyone else on the platform if you're doing that. If not, equivalent in the slop. What I do is, and I can tell you an example of one person who just blew up the other day. So there's a 1,000 subscriber channel. His name is Roshan Kotla. He's out of Hyderabad. And I work with him and our video got to 5 lakh views. This was his 7th video that we ever did together. The research was done using AI. The structure was done using AI. The packaging was done using AI. I personally generated a thumbnail using AI. I don't have designers, by the way. The reason my operation can run the way it does is because of AI. But I use it in a completely different manner than anyone else does if they don't know how to do it, which is, there's 3 parts to it. What AI allows me to do is scale my taste, which is I understand how to do titling, I understand how to do thumbnails, I understand what makes a structure for a video work. I know how to script it. I know how to think of ideas in the first place. All of these things are things I've developed by working for years doing these things. Now what I can do is I can create systems around it and ensure that whenever I have to do another project for another client, these systems adapt. And they're like, okay, if now we're working for an automobile company, this is how I'll title it based on my philosophy. This is how I'll package it. This is how I'll structure it. So these ideas of craft are fundamental. AI allows me to take on much more projects and adapt those to other fields. The other thing is external data. You can't be doing content, especially if you're serious about it, without knowing what's happening out in the world, without actually knowing, okay, if I'm in the automobile business, this is the kind of content people are searching for. This is the kind of content people are consuming. This is how scripting is happening. This is how titling is happening. Until you have that thing done and logged, until that research is done, you can't be doing it yourself because you'll be going in blind and your chances of then making it are much lower. So what AI allows me to do is scale that research. I can do days worth of research that used to, like that now takes me hours. Another example here is, and maybe I'll get to the third thing first, which is internal numbers. Every single channel generates an incredible amount of data. You have retention curves, you have CTR, you have impression counts, you have all of this stuff, you have sentiments across comments. All of this data needs to be processed. Up until now, maybe 3-4 years earlier, we used to have Excel sheets that we used to track, we used to fill up. Okay, these are the comments that are coming in, this is my table, I'm running my regression analysis on that. All of that needs to happen and you can't be doing that for 100 channels. So AI allows me to scale the data analysis part of it as well. So it allows me to do all of these things. I want to double click on the research bit though. I think a lot of people underestimate what amount of research it takes to make a video happen, right? Again, I work with a big creator called Masoom Minawala. She's at 1 million on Instagram, and we're at like 150K on YouTube. I run a full production automation pipeline for her. I own the strategy for it, which is we research every single thing that a guest has ever done or said, like every single thing. It is not humanly possible for any one person to consume that stuff. If we recently had Ariana Huffington on, she's a big figure, she's a very celebrated figure. She's written a bunch of books, a lot of books have talked about her, she's done videos, she's done apps, she's done everything. Now, one person couldn't do it in the timelines that we did. It took me a week to turn around and give Masoom like a 40-page dossier on everything about Ariana, every possible thing that she would need to know, and then a list of questions that sort of took in what is she best at, what are things that she's talked about, but haven't gone enough into, and that might be interesting to our audience. What are the gaps in sort of all the previous interviews, which might be compelling? All of these things like literally cannot be done by one person or a team. And now it's just me, like I manage the strategy for it, and it's just me figuring out the strategy, it's me figuring out the titling, it's me figuring out the thumbnails, it's me figuring out the questions. Another thing I do is on the post-production sense. Once the episode has been shot, I take the entirety of the raw file and I create a trailer from it. At an earlier point, we needed an editor to do it. They'll take it, they'll watch the entire thing, they'll think, okay, based on my judgment, I think these things will work. Now I have a system. What it does is it goes through the entire thing. It finds the best things, like the best moments from the podcast. It tries to make an arc from it. Okay, it's interesting when you look at these moments in this way. We also have internal data here. So we know what kind of arc works best for our audience. What kind of stories do they want to hear? And that is sort of what the trailer ends up being. So I give the sort of cut to the editor, who sort of finalizes it, who sort of puts the animation, puts the text, puts the sort of final finishing touches on it. But the analysis of what makes for a great story, that is coming from a mix of my taste, it's coming from a mix of the audience data, and it's a mix of what works externally. So these kinds of things used to take massive teams before. Now you don't need to do that. Now you can have like a 2-man operation that can take on 100 clients and generate the kind of taste that you want. I think people assume that when you give everything to AI, you're sort of you're being very hands-off, which is not that. What you're doing is you're allowing your taste and your insight and your sort of ability to create to a larger scale. And I think that's the difference that people don't know about.
Makes sense.
I think you should also talk about a little bit of how do you validate that the research that the AI is doing is accurate or not?
That's going to be my question.
Yeah. So it took me, so we're on version 8 of the pre-recording workflow with Masoom right now, which is every time I've learned something, okay, this is the kind of thing that's missed in the workflow, right? Until version 6, we weren't reading transcripts. We weren't going to videos and reading the full transcripts. What the system was doing was it was being lazy. It was just taking a summary of the full video and just using that. And because I didn't have like a full, like a very detailed view of what the system was actually doing, I assumed it was taking transcripts. Again, that's the thing if you work with agents. Again, this is not me going into ChatGPT or Claude and writing to it. This is like a multi-agent workflow. There's like 10 agents doing 10 different things. So a lot of times, this agents will say, okay, one agent will talk to the other and it'll be like, okay, I know this about the person, just take it. And the other agent will just take it. So now what I have is like a very detailed view on what the agent is actually doing. And now it has hard gates. Okay, one agent is just going on a big sprawl in the beginning, just mapping out everything that has ever been said about the guest or anything that the guest has ever done. It's taking all of that, making all of that into a list and giving it to another agent. The other agent is then actually going into every single thing. And I've given it tools so that it can extract transcripts, it can read books, it can actually go into blogs, it can do all of that. If there are paywalls, it can bypass them as well. If it sort of needs help, it will tell me and I'll sort of try and log into a website or something, but in most cases it manages that. So every time I see a shortcoming, and I think there are very few now, and we haven't had any sort of factual error ever. All the thing is like verified, and we have 10 agents doing verification after the fact. Once the research is done, once the questions are done, once the final brief is done, there's agents that just run fact checking. So you have a lot of sort of work going into it, and this is like a 4 or 5 hour job for one podcast. But again, it used to take like 500 hours to make something like this happen before. And that is sort of like the 100x scale that you can get to.
Insane. Like I think if you're operating at that scale, I think it's just and if you're that curious, and if you're that a tinkerer of tools, then I think eventually you'll all build frameworks, right? Like we have something similar for what we do as well, but not to that level of say methodical as that you've put together. But I guess you're 8 versions into it, so it's getting methodical at every version. But that's great. At least even from a baseline perspective, let's say if it's a team like smaller than ours, probably it's a 2-member team, like you said, Saiba Bali as a 2-member team, for example. If someone's starting out creating content of that kind of a team structure, what are some of the tools that are a must need, right, from a time and efficiency standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, when you're starting out, all you need to care about is uploading it and then looking at the analytics. That's really it. Even for the 100 videos, I'll say don't even look at the analytics. If it's a short form video, if it's a long form video, do look at it. Otherwise, you're wasting some time. But you should spend time making the next video better than the previous one. Just spend time on that. The audience will tell you something. You'll see, okay, this is what the comments are telling us. This is what the AVD is telling us, which is the retention on it. This is what the likes are telling us. This is what the impressions are telling us. Once you see that, that's all that matters for you. Now you can do a lot more things. There are research tools. You can figure out what are the outliers, and I think it depends on how deep you want to go in it. Like Mr. Beast's sort of tool, which is view stats, and there's a bunch of them like that. 1 of 10, which is what they do is they tell you what are things that are trending at like an outlier scale. So if you get 1,000 views, if one of your videos gets 10,000 views, right, that's an outlier for you, and that tells you something. That tells you either the format is working, the idea is working, or something else is working for you. This is just research out in the world. So that is something you can adopt. You can be like, okay, I'll take an example from like an automobile outlier and I'll apply it to finance, for instance, which is the kind of thing a lot of sort of strategists do in ideation, which is figuring out something, because every single video is an experiment. If you see some experiment working for someone else, you can adapt it for yourself. Of course, you'll bring your taste, you'll bring your methodology, you'll bring your insight into it, but just like, psychological hooks in the way that YouTube gives us, which is a set of packaging, like a title and a thumbnail, that's often very useful to learn from. So if you just sort of get one of those tools, you research something, just like browsing, I think that's great for people who are just starting out. I think you can get very, very anal about it. You can have your A/B test systems, you can build these sort of thumbnail generators, you can do all of that. But I think that's not required to start.
More or less. Nothing much to add, yeah. I think it also depends on who's starting out, right? Like, is it a brand? Is it a creator? I think brands, of course, need to be more intentional because it is more ROI driven. But honestly, if you're a creator, you have never made content, standard advice, just make 100 videos. Like, as you keep on going, and just try to like improve the video, like video on video, right? Just try to improve like one thing, improve the scripting, improve the production, improve same, using the same example of my friend who started making coffee content, right? And now he comes and tells me that, hey, my retention is this way. So if I put the cat here, like he has a cat in his house. So if I get the cat and feature the cat in this part, then people actually stick around till here. But if I do this, then they drop off. So and he's not even like a content person, right? He's just like a very normal he's a normal non-content person, but he's a high agency like developer, right? So I think you'll figure it out. You just have to make 100 videos, and so many people just don't do that. And yeah, I mean, there are multiple different directions to go in. I'll give an interesting contrast to what he said. So we're fairly deep into AI. I was talking to this agency a couple of weeks ago in the US, and they are pitching enterprise accounts, right? They have a couple of people on there, like the founding members have their own YouTube channels. They make shorts. I think cumulatively they have maybe 10 million subscribers. It has become a family business, and he has looped in his brother, his sister, brother-in-law, all of that. Now it's a, I think, mid 7-figure ARR agency, right? And so I asked him that, hey, what does your research look like? Because on my simple podcast, my podcast brief that I make for myself is 30 pages, right? And he was saying that, hey, we're trying to pitch this VC client and this is what we're trying to do. And I was just explaining the way that we operate, the way that I operate. And I feel like it's very rudimentary. He's like, no, we just look at YouTube for a couple of hours and we have a fair idea of what will work and we just go and pitch. And I was like, what? Is that working for you? Yeah, this one account grew to 200K, this one account grew to 400K. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, which I think will keep on reducing, but there's also that like just raw craft. right? That you just understand how things work. And if you are that person, you don't need to do research, right? Which I do not recommend. You should do research. You should understand, like you should use systems and use AI and all of this. But there are some people who just have that Midas touch, right? So that's also there.
That's charisma, personality.
Yes.
All of those factors
Correct.
playing.
Or systems, right? Let's say someone like a Varun Maya. I think there is utility for a certain type of client to go to his agency simply because of the ecosystem, right? Regardless of what you will say about the quality or format and its templatized and so on and so forth. I think just going there and having 200 editors around your account, right? Even if they're not working on it, there is some utility there. And I think that format has worked. And I'm a huge believer that the more content you make around you, the more your content will work, right? So for example, if all of three of us have podcasts, right, there is just some serendipity in all of the channels working out at some point, right? Now you times that by like 100. So it just like, there have been so many conversations where I've had with YAS members, like they're part of my community now and we keep talking. When they are like, yeah, we just did something and it worked. And I was like, but why? Like, no, it just happens, right?
So network play also, right?
Yeah. So I think there's that aspect of it as well. But yeah. I mean, we are at least, him more than me, but yeah, pretty AI native.
Right. I think if more people are involved in a project, more likely chances for it to succeed. Is that true?
Depends on what kind of people.
Yeah.
Good people, let's put it that way. I mean,
Yeah, of course. I think like that serendipity thing, right? You need to have some friction with other kinds of, I'd say, entities at this point more than humans. But humans are more unpredictable. It sort of gives you that friction more readily. So I think if you have a bunch of people who are all ideating, right? That's why writing rooms work, right? You have 10 people, they're all pitching, and then you sort of come up with an idea for an episode. That's why they work. It's a great format.
Yeah, I think creative talent manifests in an environment where there are more creative talent of the same pedigree.
100%.
Correct.
That's always been thesis.
Yeah.
Right. What are the most common mistakes YouTubers make who are trying to be YouTubers that you've seen as a repeated pattern across?
They quit too soon.
I was gonna. The consistency is what I was gonna.
Yeah. They quit too soon. They expect too much too early. I mean, there's that saying, right? That humans underestimate what can be done in 10 years and overestimate what can be done in one. So if you just stick around, there's a very popular term that I got to know when I first started podcasting called a pod fade. And I think right now it's at 7. So that means 95 or 99% of podcasts don't survive beyond episode 7. So the fact that you survived for so long just means that you are the only person left, means that winning is default. So if you can just go for longer, and if the long-term strategy is survival, then you'll do things to survive, right? You'll do things to like sustain that sort of your lifetime as a creator for longer. Yeah. So, and as a consequence, you'll win. So I think too many people focus on the winning and not on the thing that gets you there, which is partly they quit too soon. They have too many expectations. They don't like have systems around them. They don't invest in themselves. So many people just want to like take money off the table, like not get a good video editor, not pay their team, not have systems. Like, why do people not have the $200 Claude subscription? Like, it should be a no-brainer at this point that the amount of leverage that you can get, you should bloody be taking a loan out to buy that subscription if you don't have the money, because it's going to like unlock such massive value for you. So yeah, it's mostly fundamentals, no rocket science.
Yeah, even with this sort of video that went viral the other day, right? The 5 lakh video, this was the 7th video. The 6 videos got 500 views on average, 500 to 5 lakh. I mean, if he had sort of quit after the 6th video, right? And because this took us a long time to get to, because the production was weird, systems weren't set up, and we were like, okay, is this a problem with the channel because we had boosted it earlier? Is this another problem because the existing audience doesn't care about this kind of stuff? But the 7th video popped off, and all sort of doubts that he had about doing YouTube have vanished now. Now what is the next video, right? We've shot the next video now, and the aim is, can we get to 500K? Can we get to 1 million now?
Right.
That's sort of the aim now.
Right.
So you just have to stick with it.
True. I think all people who succeed on YouTube talked about the same thing.
Yeah.
I think there's a number one, the factor, right? Across the board.
Correct.
Anything else that you can think of?
So I would say that if you can, you should focus on production. And a client of mine said this very interesting thing. He said, I would rather invest into good monitors than good cameras. So I would invest in both, but my priority would be good monitors because I want to be able to see my videos in a way that my audience sees it. It's one thing to have a good camera, but if you don't have a calibrated monitor that you can do color correction on and like you can watch the video in the way that your audience will watch it, the chances of you not editing it well are higher. And I was like, dude, that makes so much sense.
And you
So
should
I would
also
say-
have like, even before monitors and cameras, get good audio. Because you
That
can
too,
you can
yeah.
tolerate bad video, you can't tolerate
Bad
bad
audio.
audio. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would actually say even now, I mean, the content has to be really good.
course.
But if let's say you're a brand making a podcast, right? Don't try to like cheap out on production because now you're not competing with like you are competing with like the Nikhil Kamats of the world, and he spends like bloody 10 lakhs an episode, right? He has like a 20-member production team.
But I'm just curious, why? Like, because I mean, 10 I think is a stretch, isn't it? Just giving
I
example.
mean, he has the money, right? And that's of course not the
guess.
norm. That's of course not the norm, and you can do in much lesser. But my point is just that don't look at that on your PNL as the thing that needs to be cut because it's at the bottom, right? Because it does have some value. Like we are working with a client right now, and I mean, of course, we are trying to make sure that the production budget is feasible. But at the same time, like we do recommend that hey, you use a cine lens camera, right? Because it is going to make a difference. Or you use like a certain type of production. You don't like try to do it in an office corner where it's not optimized to look like a studio, right? Because these things do go a long way. And I think a lot of people discount that because they feel like I don't need it.
Yeah.
I've had so many clients be like, oh no, the content has to be good. Like, if the content is good, the production doesn't matter. But I'm like, your content is not good, no. So at least have the production to be good. So I think, yeah, like people pick and choose, right, according to convenience because everyone is YouTube guru at this point. So everyone is listening to the same Varun Maya videos and the same, Paddy Calloway videos and all of these people talking about YouTube and Tanmay Bhatt saying that, hey, content is great, nothing else matters. So everyone has an opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything that comes to mind apart from these two?
Things people do, not really.
Right.
Yeah.
What does the future look like in 2036
For
podcasting or for YouTube in general?
I think YouTube's gonna stick around. I think people have often discounted YouTube just because new platforms come in. Like you think short form's gonna kill long form, but I don't think it's gonna do that. I think you wanna still continue watching things on 2D in a long form format where you build a relationship with the other person, because at the end of the day these are like communication mediums, right? You wanna hear the other person, you wanna see the other person, and I think regardless of whatever AR VR future we live in, we'll have YouTube just while you're walking down the street, you'll have it on the corner of your eye telling you something. I think it's gonna stick around, and YouTube is the place to bet on. I think I wouldn't bet on any other platform like I would on YouTube. Instagram can go away tomorrow. TikTok can go away tomorrow. I think YouTube's gonna be around.
Yeah. That's a good question. I don't think I've thought of things for that long because I don't think I've been in this industry for that long.
I thought you were going to say, I don't plan to be there for that long. I was like, whoa.
No. I feel like things will just evolve, right? Like, if you honestly ask me what that evolution looks like, I think long form is here to stay because long form, like storytelling is here to stay. That's what I would bet on, right? Does that take the form of YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, like cave paintings on the wall? I don't know. But I think if you understand the fundamentals of storytelling, you'll be fine, right? I'm a true believer that I can learn anything, right? Like apart from physical limitation, it may be that, hey, long form, short form, micro drama, whatever. Like because I understand the fundamentals of storytelling, right? So then learning like the nitty gritty of it is not a problem. So I think if you just understand that along with human psychology and like just like incentives, I feel like you'll be fine. In 10 years, there's a very interesting book by Kevin Kelly. And it's about 10 years old, but I think it's still like 20, 30 years in the future, but way ahead of its time. He talks about this idea that screens will go away, which I find very fascinating, right? I don't exactly remember what he says will replace the screens, but I feel like there will be some sort of evolution and some sort of progression where we don't have screens anymore, right? Because it's still not like, it's an extension to you, it's not you. right? So there might be those
Yeah,
Ray-Ban
yeah.
Meta glasses, right? You're already seeing that. I mean, sure, it's a screen, but it's so much closer. It's almost like a part of you, right? More than a smartphone. Now you're literally wearing it on yourself
Yeah.
all times. Maybe it's like a gaming type headset. If you've seen,
Ready
I'm
Player One.
forgetting. Maybe not Ready Player One. There's that Ryan Reynolds movie where he's the video
Yeah,
game
yeah,
character,
yeah.
right? And like, the minute you put on the glasses, you can see like an entire. It's
Yeah.
VR, I guess,
Yeah,
right? Or AR, whatever. Maybe it's something like that. You can already see with the Meta
Yeah,
Ray-Ban,
yeah.
new glasses. You just do this with the band, and then so there will be some evolution. And just like short form, like instantly blew the world away with this sort of new thing that no one had seen before. Like no one had expected that short form will become as big as it did, right? I think the cycle for a new thing to come will be shorter now, right? So yeah, I think if your fundamentals of storytelling are fine, you'll be good.
Yeah.
Which is sort of where my head is at right now.
Right. Fair. True. Great. Anything else we need to cover?
No, I think I'm good.
I think we touched upon all your controversial hot takes that you guys had.
Yeah, I've really been practicing having hot takes because I feel like it's very easy to be like, oh, that's okay. I
I'm
can
too
see that
nuanced.
happening.
I'm too nuanced. I'm like,
Yeah.
how do I structure it into a nice sound? Because we've seen so many creators recently blow up just by doing hot takes.
Hot takes.
Yeah.
Like, how should we get into the hot take business? But it's all right.
And it's easy to say that, oh, it's cringe, but I think it's like you need to have an opinion, right? Like I want to have an opinion, which is not easy.
Yeah.
So now off late I've just been sort of leaning into my unpopular
Right.
opinions.
True. Great. Thanks, guys, for spending 4 hours on roll time almost.
It was lovely.
God
I
damn,
think we
yeah.
enjoyed it.
Amazing
I have to
conversation.
figure out how to package this now and put it out. But let's see. I think true creators probably will enjoy it. I think those like to watch 3-4 hour podcasts. It takes me 3 sittings to get through anything longer than 3 hours. But yeah, I'm also going to try and watch this.
Yeah,
So thanks a
makes
lot
sense.
for taking time out and doing this, guys.
Appreciate it.
Lovely.